Hello and welcome back to the Let's Be Frank podcast. The franchise, we've missed you so much. I know it's been a very long time, but we couldn't just win a freaking World Series without coming back and talking to you guys. Um, I'm Frank Lopez. My co-host Frank Martinez. Frank, how you doing, champ?
Dude, I feel like a champion, man. I feel like a real champion.
Man, same, and we know kind of what that feels like. Um, but it's been suppressed in the past. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel the same. And then a lot said about 2020 and what that means to maybe the rest of the league. But at the moment, right? We know what being on top of the baseball world felt like, right? Uh, but then it's kind of stopped there. We didn't get all the elation, we didn't get all the celebrations, we didn't get to see all our guys on the talk shows, all things like that. So look, guys, we're recording about 8 days after the Dodgers clinched, which is a while, but it's given us enough time to really collect our thoughts, I think, and be able to articulate some of the ways that we feel. So right now we've probably each, both of us, we're very similar. Probably watched every single highlight from every single series. Be like, what happened in Game 4 of this series? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened. It's been a lot of that. So in that, Frank, like, kind of where exactly are you at in the process right now? In the aftermath of a World Series.
I'd probably say that I'm in the like acceptance process. Like it's truly real. Like the elation is like was just so high, and
Hmm.
then they come back down and just be like, dude, it really happened, and just like yeah, replaying everything, watching all the highlights again. But just that feeling of like man, this entire off season, we're the ones that can take it however we want to. If we want to gloat, you just hey, we've earned that right as a
Yeah,
fan.
yeah,
But also just reliving the experience from the other side of it and it being celebratory as opposed to regret, as opposed to what happened and what could have went right did go right this time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When you sum it all up, it's kind of just they finally had the postseason we've been waiting for, I think, right? Um, like every big moment, like look, we got the revenge factor with the Padres, right? And then we got let's go into a big market, the Mets, right? The Mets is a little bit of a revenge factor for some of us that have been following long enough, right? It's a
Yeah,
little bit of that.
2015.
Yeah, in 2015. And then you go into this World Series and it's Dodgers Yankees, right? Like there's not really a superlative that really matches just what it is. Like it's the Dodgers versus the Yankees. And just obviously the hype right around the league, whatever. I was giddy, dude. Like I could not contain myself for what was it? Probably like 4 days or so.
Yeah.
I couldn't like I couldn't gather myself. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. All the way up until the first pitch. So I think what we want to do today, you guys, for franchise, is kind of just go kind of step by step. And I think the first thing we should probably touch on a little bit is the regular season, right? So since we haven't recorded since before, I think the last time we recorded was when we signed Shohei.
Yeah.
Um, so just kind of like touch on um, a lot's been said about the injuries, right? The pitching injuries, right? To be more clear, but also the other injuries, man. We had Mookie Betts break his hand, and he was on his way probably towards an MVP season as well. So that would have been interesting down the stretch, but basically everything that can go wrong was starting to go wrong. I mean, with this team, right? So I mean, I don't know, Frank. Was there ever a point during the regular season where you felt like, nah, this isn't gonna happen? Like, I mean, that wasn't really realistic.
No, you know what? I'm gonna be honest, no. And here's the reason, because we had all the dominant regular seasons in years past. We had 2021, we had 2022, especially 2022. And even last year where we kind of rebounded during a rough regular season, still won 100 games. And what we saw over and over, I think reoccurring is that just get to the postseason and make a run.
Yeah.
And I went into last offseason after the second consecutive, like brutal early exit. Dude, I was celebrating my 15-year anniversary in Hawaii when we lost to the D backs. So you can imagine how that trip was. a little bit. And um, I told myself, like with conviction, that I was going to go into that offseason with the framework that the regular season was not as important as maybe in years past. Just get to the offseason no matter what. And so I kind of maintained that um, throughout the regular season. So even with Mookie going down,
All right. The recording made it stop, I guess.
I don't know, it just started buffering and then came back.
Cool. Yeah, you're talking about last time I heard you were talking about Hawaii.
Yeah, so I went into the offseason because of the brutal disappointment of last several postseasons that I wasn't going to let the regular season really matter a whole lot to me. I was going to enjoy the regular season for what it was.
Mhm.
Um, I even joked. I remember, like, dude, I don't even care if we go in as a wild card. Remember, there was that narrative during regular season amongst some fans, like, oh, some fans prefer to be the wild card. I didn't necessarily fall in that camp,
Right.
but if that were to have happened, we've seen these wild card teams make runs into the all the way to the World Series.
Yeah.
So the regular season didn't carry as much weight for me for the this team standpoint. I just really wanted to get to the postseason with a team that was capable of making a run.
Yeah. Yeah, look, there's not a lot of baseball fans that can really relate to us as Dodger fans in the sense that we've just consecutively been there for so long,
Right.
right? And the one year we didn't win the division, we won 100, what, 106 games or something like that. It was just a total fluky season by the Giants, right? And we ended up beating them in the division series. Um, so what tends to happen, I think, like over the years, is you see so many different paths to what it's taken to either win or to not win, right? The teams that get
Right.
through us to win all the way, and then the times that we've gone through different series, and in 2020, the time we won, what that looked like, and which was just kind of just a distinct year in and of itself. But so yeah, I can kind of relate to you. Like it was hard not to get suckered in, obviously, with the Shohei Ohtani news and Yamamoto and Glass now and Teoscar Hernandez, all this stuff, exciting stuff happened, right? Shohei's 50-50 season, things like that. So, like you said, like it was fun to be a spectator, but obviously in the back of our heads, we're like,
Right.
right? So, I think one very underrated part of this past season, and I think this change, I think they made this change maybe a couple years ago, but we really saw the fruits of it this season, is the fact that every single team plays against every single team now, right? Um, so you have a Dodgers Yankees World Series, for example. We had a Dodger Yankee season in a series in July, right? So
Yeah.
we have something to compare it to. Um, but also it really balances the scales. And this year, I remember this season, going into the playoffs, we're like, there's not a clear cut winner here. Like, there's not a clear dominant team, um, which that gave me peace, right? It didn't feel like the Dodgers had to win, like, were expected to win, right? On the contrary, going into the DS, we were probably underdogs. You ask all the experts, everybody, I don't think we were underdogs. I think we were the better team, but everybody wanted the Padres to win.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Picking the Padres, right.
Yeah, because they wanted them to win, and you get why, right? They're the sub market of Los Angeles essentially, and they built a really, really, really good team.
Right.
Um, and this season I mean, look, they beat us 2 years ago, and if they would have beat us again this season, they would be like, hey, they caught up, at least this generation. Um, but so the fact that every team plays against each other, two 98 win teams feels a lot closer than it did in the past, right? It's not just somebody beating up on the Rockies all season long, although we do play the Rockies more than other divisions, but every division has one of those teams. And when you play those teams less and you get forced to play the Tigers who had a decent, end of the season or the Orioles or whatever, every single division, the Astros, the records are more balanced. Like it makes a lot more sense. So that's where I was like, okay, well, we're all kind of all going in on the same foot here. That's kind of what it felt like. Um, so I do share that where it's like, okay, like let's enjoy this for what it is. There was great moments throughout the regular season. Um, but we did get the best record, right, in the National League. We're gonna have 4 days off. How are we gonna overcome that? Because that is an obstacle. It is
Right.
an obstacle, right?
Absolutely.
Baseball's not set up to reward the best team. It's not. Um, and case in point, this season, hey, Padres, who are the second best team in baseball, how about you guys go get a little bit of a head start and come in to a Dodger series a little bit hot? We saw it happen 2 years ago, and we were a game away from that happening this season, So I think so much goes into it, man, and so um, I mean, where to start as far as the postseason? Um, I guess I guess we could start with the fact that we did win the division. We did have the best record in baseball, so we did have home field advantage in that series, right? And foreshadowing a little bit, I think that mattered, man.
Oh,
I think it
absolutely.
mattered. We had a home game one in all three series, and we won our home game one in all three series, right? So if we can go to the Padres series, if you could just kind of kick us off there, um, going into game one and kind of what your expectations were and kind of how it all played out.
Yeah, so obviously that was huge. We had that big series at the end of the season just to clinch the division, which was massive. I think for the psyche of the team,
Yeah.
we were pretty dominant. We won two out of the three games. We should have won that third game as well. So um, that was like a big factor in my feeling. Like we got this. Like we totally got this. And the fact that we had home field, um, I was prepared for a bump in the road in that series, thinking like, okay, if for some reason we go down in the series or something wonky happens, I think having game five at home was going to be massive for us. And that proved to be the case. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? But ultimately, yeah, just it ultimately proved to be the case. But going into game one, I was just really confident thinking like, even though they had their pitching, they had their three guys, I was confident that our team, this team, the patience of the way this offense was set up, the different players I think that were injected into this offense compared to previous seasons, they were going to be able to come through enough against their guys. And I think that's what happened.
It certainly did. And look, but let's not forget, right? Padres got off to a 3-0 lead in that game, right? And something I do want to speak to, and we've both been to different postseason games, and
Mm-hmm.
um, is the palpable feeling inside of Dodger Stadium when it feels like things are going to start to unravel, right? It's you can cut it with a knife,
The
right?
nervous energy.
Yes, and
Yeah.
everybody, it's the oh noises. It's the person next to you putting their hands on their head, like here we
Mm.
go again. And this is what I'm saying, like I mean, I don't know, like there were lifelong Cubs fans that waited their entire lives to see a Cubs World Series into their, old age, right? Same thing with the Red Sox. This is ours, right? Because those teams also went through large stretches of time where they weren't even making the postseason.
Right.
Here, it is every single season and everything rides on every single pitch. So we know what that feeling is. Like we know it's like, oh no, right? Oh no. And how many times we get that feeling and then it's confirmed after what happens after that, right?
Yeah. That here we go.
That here we go. And so one thing that I remember going into this season was just the way our roster was constructed. Um, I really feel, and I want to give one of a million. I want to give Andrew Friedman some flowers here as well. Um, is that he built this team in a way that I really think got the stank of years past off of the Dodgers. Um, because when I looked at our roster, our lineup, and I see a Shohei Ohtani and I see a Teoscar Hernandez, Yoshi Yamamoto, like I see that and I don't feel like it's old teams, right? And even though we were starting to fall into that same pattern of thought during game one, you get a massive swing from Shohei Ohtani, right? And it was like, oh yeah, this is not the same team, right?
Right.
So I mean, let's talk about how big of a swing that was, man. Obviously, foreshadowing there was massive swings later on in the series, one in particular, right? But those don't happen, in my opinion, right? Without that one.
Yeah. It was essentially the statement really that needed to be made. It was this is not going to be a 1 for 21 from our superstars.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a disappointment from our offense. Like we're good. Like we're
Yep.
gonna perform. And
Yep.
especially because of the fact that we were already down 3-0, like you're saying, and that all that palpable feeling. And I wasn't at the stadium, but I could imagine I felt it in my home, watching the game, like, oh,
Mhm.
come away. So as soon as he hit it, a no doubter. And you know what's funny because I remember I think it was his first at bat. He got beat up in the zone and by a fastball, but he wasn't. He was like he was just missed it. And I'm like, okay. And so I think Smoltz even mentioned in his color commentary of the home run call where he's like they tried to do the same exact thing again, and he was ready
He,
for it.
he registered it. Yeah, he
Yeah,
registered it. I think it was the day before, or two couple days before, he was one of like those pregame press conferences or interview or whatever, and they asked him, "Are you nervous?" He gave a quick nope. Um,
yeah,
and look, in that moment, you could take it as that. You could take it as like nope, or as I'm going to answer this question as fast as I can because I don't even want to think about it because I might be a little nervous. Right? It could have gone both ways. So like
for
I was like,
sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to know until I see what the heck happens. Right? It's his first postseason for crying out loud, and so with you're right about that first at bat. With that, the swings in that first at bat, I was like, no, those are not nervous swings, right?
Right,
If anything, maybe over anxious, whatever. But it's so much easier to settle back down from that than to come the other way up. So
right.
he gets that swing, and I think that's when the ride starts, right? Obviously, it was a tough couple games after that, but um, you know, the series got chippy, right? As it does, right, with the San Diego Padres, and I think maybe one of the five games the Dodgers kind of got out of their element, and I think it was probably game three. Um, it was the game they went back to San Diego. It was the day after Machado threw the ball back to the dugout, and um, Jack Flaherty had been popping off at him as well. They were going back and forth, and Padres fans were chomping at the bit. They really were, right? I mean, obviously we're on Twitter and we're seeing everything they're saying, but you could have just imagined in the stadium the type of energy that they had. There was multiple times in that game where I saw Dave Roberts on the back bench
Mm.
managing, because I'm sure it was hostile. It was probably dangerous to be 100% honest. I didn't like that, man. So like it was kind of like a man, like that nervous energy still there. Um, but at the same time, we do feel differently about the team that's on the field, right? Um, so the Dodgers go on to lose the next two games. So down 2-1 after the Padres are playing their style of baseball,
Right.
right? Right. They're kind of imposing their will. Um, I think, and it's something that Dave Roberts has said a lot in different interviews and uh, since I think the game rewards you, right? He said the game honors you. I think is what he said.
Honors, yeah.
Yeah, the game honors you. And sometimes it's not going to be in the way that you want it to, right? But sometimes it honors you in the way where, hey, you can, if you're the consistent if you're consistent temperamentally and everything's going crazy around you, it's gonna eventually swing back your way and things are gonna kind of take off, right? Um, so going into a game four, Frank, where there's a bullpen game, what were your feelings? Down 2-1.
Um, I was actually there was nervous. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous, but I was quietly confident because of the fact that look, Machado's not to, Machado. Their hitters aren't going to be able to, Machado, Tatis, whoever. They weren't going to be able to settle in against a pitcher, and see that guy two or three times. It was going to be a different pitcher every at bat, probably. And so that was possibly going to play to our favor if our guys just went out and executed. And so the offense, it was, I think, the bigger thing. Even though it was a bullpen game, I was a little more nervous about the offense. Like, are we going to show up down there? Are we going to be able to perform in a hostile crowd? And there were some positive signs. Mookie essentially homered in three straight games. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Only,
basically.
so it's like I think we should be okay if we score and we have a lead to protect. I think our bullpen can do that.
Yeah, and that kind of tended to be the theme, right? Get an early lead and hold it.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I think that in that little stretch is where we learned everything that we learned about our bullpen, right? Um, I think a lot of these guys individually have shined at different times as Dodgers, right? You have your Evan Phillips, your Blake Trinans, your Alex Vesias, guys. Those are the guys that have been there for a little while. And then a couple new characters, right? Your Anthony Bandas, your Michael Kopechs. Ryan Brazier was there last year as well, but he's back. So you've seen those guys succeed. You've seen those guys fail. Seeing those guys get injured, there's so many things that happen. But when the way that we saw them piece it together, um, was nothing short of beautiful, in my opinion. Uh, because game four was pretty much a blowout, right? I mean, yeah, it was a bullpen game and our guys hit, and I mean, we shut them out, right? That was the beginning of that streak that we had.
Right.
Um, but going into game five, right? We have you, Darvish, against Yoshinobu Yamamoto, right? Which I'm assuming is probably the highest rated game in Major League Baseball game in Japan, probably ever, ever.
Yeah.
Uh, which is uh, which is crazy to say because of the rich history that they have there. But elimination game, Darvish already handed it to us once in that series. They had gone to cease and short rest the previous game. So the pitching matchups kind of got misaligned. So it's those two guys getting to face each other in an elimination game. I'll be honest, going into that game, based off of the way they performed in game four, I was like, there's no way that you Darvish is going to do this again to us. There's no way. Like in my head, there's not a chance. Like, not this guy, especially not this guy. Like, after everything we've been
Yeah.
through with you Darvish, right?
Right.
And it's a long time. And I've actually had the growth to not even really hold resentment when I see him on the mound anymore. But in those moments, you're like, this can't be, right? But guy comes out and he's got his stuff.
Yeah.
He's got his stuff. But the good news was that our guy did too. It seemed like at some point in game one, Yamamoto learned how to settle in a little bit into the postseason. And from there, he was him. He was the guy that we knew he was, right? Um, and he showed out. Right? I think he pitched, I want to say 5 innings that game,
Right.
which is the most he had pitched in
Months.
months, right? Like since his injury, probably. Um, and then we get to off the backs of two Hernandez home runs, right? Kike Hernandez and a Teoscar Hernandez home run in the seventh. But we get a lead and it's back to giving the ball to the dogs, right? So how do you feel giving the ball back to the bullpen, Frank, in that game?
Well, I mean, just before getting to the bullpen, really, I echoed your sentiments about you, Darvish, and I was just thinking if Yamamoto can have a clean first inning, like that,
Yeah,
that was a lot riding on that for me. Because he's shown that shaky first inning, whatever, settle in, and then he that was kind of a pattern for him even before the injury. And so once he got out of that first inning clean, I was like, okay, I think we're gonna be all right. But of course, with Darvish dealing again, it was like, how long can Darvish go? Like, let's just ride him out, grind out EVs. They weren't really doing that. It's like, gosh, but man, Kike Hernandez hitting his thing, his bomb, like it was like, okay. The narrative that goes on in your head is like, okay, it's working in our favor. That's our guy. You know what I mean? He came back specifically for a game like this. He
yeah.
came through. Someone else is probably going to come through too. And sure enough, so when Teoscar goes deep, it was like, all right, we're not giving up this lead. There's no way we're giving up this lead. We're gonna hold it. Bullpen's gonna do what they do. And so that narrative started to form like, you know what? This bullpen, because of the issues with the starting pitching and all the crazy amounts of injuries, like this is gonna be part of our ride. These dogs are gonna be clutch for us as far as we go in this run. And sure enough,
I mean, yeah, I think the feeling that I got throughout that game, man, and or going back to Darvish, it felt like he made two mistakes that entire game,
pretty much.
and we capitalized on both of those, which tells me these guys were locked in, like right, like the two mistakes we got, not even from our MVPs, they took them deep over the fence. We're not even close. They were ready to barrel those two pitches up, um, off the bat. We knew, and so the feeling that I got, Frank, I mean, as that game was happening, right? Pretty much from the moment Yoshi came out of the game and the bullpen was starting to do what it had done the game before, in my mind, it's like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're doing it. It's happening. Like it's happening. It's happening. I was watching it here with my wife, and like we're like she was like, "You keep saying that." She's like, "You keep saying that it's happening. What the heck is happening? Like it's happening. Like what we've always wanted to happen. How many times have they pulled Kershaw and it doesn't happen? You know what I mean? Like all those times, like times go through your head. And this time it's happening. It's happening. There's strikeout. I think it was Evan Phillips that struck out Machado on a slider way outside. I was like, oh my God. Michael Kopech striking out Cronenworth on a 102-mile-an-hour fastball up
Yeah.
in the zone. Like things like that, as that was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna do it.
Like we're busting all these narratives just in those
All
things you
of
mentioned.
that's when it
Cronenworth was
felt
a
like it,
Dodger
right?
killer. Yeah, yeah.
That's when it felt like all the narrative. That's a good way to put it. It's like when Forrest Gump is running with his like leg braces and he's just breaking them
He's
off.
like,
That's what it
yeah,
felt like.
right.
He's doing it like run, Forrest, run. Like, and so who would have known that it was the pitching that was going to make us feel that way, like, or make me, like, I didn't think that going into this postseason because it was like the narrative during the season wasn't the bullpen. Like, we knew it could be a strength. We knew the talent that was there, but it wasn't like, oh, the Dodgers bullpen, they're going to ride their bullpen.
No, right.
No. So as they were doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are locked in. And you go to Blake Trine in the ninth with a 2-run lead. I mean, how fitting is it that Fernando Tatis has the bat in his hands, you know, with 2 outs, and it really came down to that. Ground ball to Kike Hernandez at third, beautifully picked, throws it across the diamond, game over. Um, in what felt like the most significant series we've had since 20, maybe 2021 against the Giants, or who knows, like this one was for sure building, this series for sure was building up more than the Giant series. The Giant series is always going to be fun and, but specifically with these two teams, it was just, oh my gosh, and they did it, and that's when I'll be honest, that's when I got the feeling like, okay, who the heck is going to beat us? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody can beat this team, right? And I really haven't had that feeling. I have not had that feeling, Frank, since 2017. I
Wow.
was convinced that we were going to win the World Series in 2017, and we didn't. So I've cautiously stayed away from that feeling for what, 7 years. Um, but in that moment, I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And, um, and the way that victory connected even with the city, like it got everybody tuned in, right? Considering
Yeah,
what
for
happened in the
sure.
division series the previous 2 seasons, it was probably easy for people to just be like, ah, nah, freaking Dodgers again. Oh, they choked again, whatever. That game 5 victory, I can just tell from my Instagram stories and from people that I talked to, it got everybody to tune back in and say, okay, this is the one. This is the year. Um, which they needed. I think it had to be the Padres, in my personal opinion, to even make the Dodgers feel like, in a similar way. So, um, I mean, what other NLDS notes do you have? I don't know if there's anything else that kind of stood out to you.
Yeah, just that Forrest Gump illustration is like spot on exactly. Like I just feel like that. You're just busting the narratives, getting past them, you know, um, overcoming what we had to overcome from the series, coming back from being in a deficit 2 games to 1, having to win that game 4 in their house. I remember telling my son after game 3, I'm like, we're fine. I'm like, we're fine. He's like, how can you say we're fine? We're fine because they're throwing Dylan Cease on short rest.
Yeah.
Dude never goes on short rest. We're gonna get to that guy. We're gonna win game 4. It's gonna come down to game 5 at home. And
And
so,
you're right about that because that Dylan Cease on short resting was such a panic move, right? That was a Don Mattingly move,
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
right? Like that's the thing. Is like when that happened, we're like, oh, they don't feel good about where they're at right now. They don't feel good being up 2-1. They didn't.
Right.
So they're doing this. Little do they know, like they just got to throw some crafty lefty at us, and we're gonna that's
Exactly.
their
Yeah,
best chance,
it would have
right?
been it, right?
Which is who they had. I forget who the heck their fourth starter is. Like that's what he was. I was like, oh, they're getting out of their element because they don't feel comfortable being up 2-1 against this team, right? I think that gave the Dodgers control back of the series, right? Like the fact that they put Dylan Cease on short rest and they're like, oh, the guy we just saw, like what? Like the guy that Shohei took deep, like okay, all right, and and it paid off, and so I mean, what a series! I think, I mean, obviously that was the one that um, kind of got everybody back on the bandwagon, to be 100% honest, and got everybody feeling good about this team again. But it was so significant, man, because the Padres kicked the Dodgers' ass all season, really, right? When in years past it's been the other way around, like the Dodgers are the ones that win throughout the regular season, and then in the postseason they handed to us, but um, and with the emotions that were riding throughout that series, and with the Profars and the Tatises and the Machados, the whole thing, and hey, but those guys are gonna be ready next year. We're still
Yeah,
gonna
you know,
play that many
yeah.
times. So here we go again. But um, I don't know. I feel like if there's a path to a World Series, it might be to start the postseason on that type of series, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of teams, the wild card round serves as that, right? Just like a high tension, whatever, 2, 3 games, and then you get on your hot streak and then you ride it. In this case, the Dodgers, it was that series. And they did a great job staying hot throughout that break. They were doing like watch parties together, and I think they recognized that they needed to do things differently, and they absolutely did, and it paid off, man. So just a hell of an NLDS, like
Yeah, I
honestly,
think just
my favorite.
to that point you're making though, when we were approaching that last week of the season and we're like we're gonna get the number one seed, number two seed, and everyone's like, no, let's get the favorable bracket. You know what I mean? Let's drop down to number two so we can get. And I was just like, no, I'd rather go in and have to. If we're gonna win the World Series, we're gonna have some tough moments. We're gonna have to face a tough team.
Hmm.
So why not go and do that and get on, like to your saying, get on our high early on and then just ride that, because that's been the recipe for all these other past World Series.
Hmm.
And of course, it's not the most comfortable
No,
as a
no.
fan,
But you can't ease into a run. You can't.
right?
You got to just get going, right? And I mean, that's essentially what happened, man. And I mean, it's just ecstatic. And I think that honestly might be the most memorable NLDS that I could remember. If I had to put a top three, it's gonna be that one, the one against the Giants, and I would maybe say 2016 against the Nationals when Kershaw closed it out. Like
Yeah, the
there-
Nats one.
there's a few. But I mean, it was a thing of beauty, and I think at that point people started seeing like who the Dodgers really were. Um, so yeah, man. I don't know if you had anything else to add to the NLDS.
No, just as far as narratives go, after winning the NLDS and realize we're going to face the Mets, I was like, okay, 1988, all right,
Yeah,
and let's go.
yeah, and there's a lot of 1988 parallels to this run. Um, that being one of them. Now let's not forget that the Mets beat the Phillies, right? And if me going into this postseason, I had the Phillies almost right up there with the Padres of teams I didn't want to see, right? Like teams you don't want to have to face. So the Mets very well may have done us a favor by eliminating them, right? Well, basically what's happened to us the past 2 seasons happened to the Phillies this season. Right, where they get beat by a division opponent, didn't know what to do with that time off, and kind of just get surprised and bullied by a hot team. And granted, the Mets were probably one of the hottest teams like in the second half of the season
Yeah,
since the Dodgers had last seen them, like there might have been the best record or whatever. Um, and uh, so here we go in the NLCS against the New York Mets. You have an LA New York matchup already. So it just feels big, right? It feels big, but it's such a different energy from the NLDS, right? So I think I was a little worried. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little worried there might be a little bit of a come down um, from what they experienced.
yeah, like an adrenaline dump or something.
Yeah, like a little just an energy shift.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we go with Jack Flaherty game one. Is that what we did?
Yeah, and he deals.
Any deals? Any deals? Against Senga.
Senga, yeah.
Senga, yeah. Against Senga, and it just looked like Senga just wasn't ready for the moment, to be 100% honest. He just did not look good. Um, but there goes that best record, home field advantage, game one victory. And so the Dodgers are off to a 1-0 lead. And it was a bit of a laugher, right? It was a bit of like ooh, these two teams are not evenly matched, which is a scary place to be, man, because that's where you can kind of fall the hardest. But what were your feelings like going into the NLCS and how the Dodgers were looking?
Yeah, definitely. Still, the starting pitching was was a question mark. And it was coming down to that. I think the overwhelming feeling was like if our starting pitching can just be adequate, if they can, it felt like just being adequate was going to be overperforming for them, right? But if we can get that, our offense is going to come through. We just proved that, and the bullpen is a strength, major strength. So, what can we get from our starters? It was really the question for me, and I was really confident. I think those foreshadowed a little bit, but that 6 runs or whatever it was, Bueller gave up against the Padres, dude. Of course, the Tatis bomb was on him. You know what I mean? But that Tatis bomb doesn't happen without all the mistakes in that inning. You know, it was our own Yankees game 5 inning
A little
that
bit.
Bueller had to suffer through, and so um, outside of that inning, Bueller looked really good, and everything he had been preaching. Although I think we all felt what we felt maybe with Bueller in the beginning of the season. Everything he had been preaching about his own body, every start that didn't look like anything positive. He kept talking about, I felt better here. I felt a little more command on this pitch. It's trending upward for me, even though the final score didn't necessarily show that.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that's what he's saying. Let's trust him, and it started to show. I think even with that Padre performance, and so it was like, I think we're gonna get something good out of Bueller. What can Flaherty give us? And and sure enough, for Flaherty to deal in game 1, it was like, all right, I feel real good now. I feel really, really
Yeah, and to backtrack a little bit to that Bueller start in San Diego, Bueller gives up what, how many runs in 2 innings?
good. It was like 6, I believe,
Like I
or
think
some
maybe five in 2 innings. Yeah,
5. Yeah,
it's 5 runs in 2 innings. Tatis just monster shot. After that is when that consecutive scoreless inning started.
right.
Walker Buehler goes into the dugout, throws a Gatorade
Yeah,
tub, and a lot of times those things are seen as like hissy fits, right? And athletes being divas or whatever.
yeah,
But in this case, it's a little bit different because Walker Buehler had every reason to not pitch well. Coming off of his second Tommy John surgery, not really looking good. All the injuries the team already had, like, dude, if Glasnow's on the roster and Kershaw's on the roster and healthy, Bueller might not make the freaking roster, man. Like,
right.
how crazy is that, right? So all the umbrella was open. You know what I mean? Like all the excuses were already there. But for him to react that way, go in and um react the way he did in the dugout, I think sent a message to the entire team, saying like, no, this is not okay. This is not okay, right? Where we're at right now. And then the Dodgers just started to shove. And this is where we'll start talking about Dave Roberts a little bit, right? Because he let what we thought was going to be him letting Bueller wear it that game ended up being a shutout the rest of the game for the pitching staff, led by 3 scoreless innings from Walker Bueller.
After that point, yep.
After that point, the day before a bullpen game where every out you get is so valuable. Um, so Roberts' foresight there, right? To just know like, hey, this is my guy, and he's gonna have to wear it, right? Bueller's reaction and the way he turned that game around shifted the momentum for the entire series. Um, and in my opinion, into his future starts. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, and so on the Roberts topic, right now we go back to the NLCS, right, going into game 2, which is another schedule, which didn't have to be, but he scheduled it as a bullpen game, which is not a bad idea because you have a day off right after that. Um, I think he started, was it Brazier or Kopech, or I forget who started that game. Um, but it was one of the games that's been regarded as a punt, right? Dave Roberts punting a game. Now, there's a million different ways to look at it, but I really like kind of your approach at it, your perspective at it, and the way you're kind of letting us know on your Twitter. But can you talk to us a little bit about those games and that strategy and kind of how it paid off for us?
Yeah, I know the idea was I think we were down early, but still manageable. and that was like the 11-7 game or something like that, right? So, but at some point it wasn't an insurmountable lead. It was like 3-run lead or something, and everyone's like, okay, bring in our guys, bring in our dogs right now. But knowing we were going to have to travel to New York and have 3 consecutive games over there, where you're going to need your bullpen, and you're going to need them to be able to perform. To me, it just made zero sense to go all in a game two, right? Everyone talks about like a game seven approach, right? Game seven, you go all in, everyone's available no matter what. You know what I mean? You don't do that in a game two, especially if you have the team that you have and you have the experience that you can lean on. You've been through wars. You just went through a 5-game war. You know what I mean? This is a 7-game series. You manage it as such. And so I think where the emotions can take over and I feel like maybe in years past, our managers have allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
It was like we're playing the long game,
Mhm.
and we're in game two, but there is a game three and a game four and potentially more. So let's manage accordingly. And I think he did that, man. And I think like we saw so much growth, and there's a lot of moments that we can pinpoint that, Matt, we can literally as fans say, man, in years past, that decision would have been in years past, it would have been something different, and it would have led to potentially our demise as on the field. And so, yeah, in game two, when everything was going crazy, it was like, nope, nope, let's just get through this game. We'll head to games three, four. They're not going to sweep us in games three, four, and five. Like, that's not going to happen. So, we're coming back to LA, whether we're up in the series or down, we're coming back and we're going to have game six and seven. So, it really is just that shift, that energy shift you talked about earlier, but also the perspective shift of it's a long series. We gotta treat it as such. And I think with our experience versus their experience, um, we should be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've watched the Mookie Betts podcast, the On Base one with Dave Roberts yet.
I just finished it today. Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool, right, to see just kind of the relationship those guys have and the way that that's developed, and that's a player that we know we're gonna have for a long time, and we presume that Dave Roberts is gonna be there for a long time too. So it just makes you feel really good. It's like one of those like that. I don't know. It gives you a lot of comfort listening to that interview. But one of the things that Dave Roberts pointed out was that this was in all the years he's been the Dodgers manager, this is the first time that he felt like the team took on his personality. Um, so it's a bold move to do what he did, right? To not go all in and knowing your offense is what it is, that can come back in any game, to not go to your high leverage guys, to try to keep it close and, you know, at that cost.
Right.
Um, it takes a certain group to actually be able to pull it off, because it the message can go both ways, right?
Yeah.
And the message could go the other way where there's not a sense of urgency, right? Or it could go the way that it was received, was like, no, we're fine. We're confident, right? And there's a very fine line between the two. But the fact that he really had this team's buy-in more than any other year past, in my opinion. And again, credit to Andrew Friedman for building that type of team and bringing the type of players in to really
Right.
get the stank. And we still had a lot of the same players, but it just felt different this year. Um, to feel that confidence, and it really carried throughout the rest of the team, because game three was a laugher again, right?
Right.
So um so credit to Dave Roberts, man. I mean, this is a master class from start to finish, what he did this postseason. um the conviction that he managed with, right? um the fact that we couldn't really predict what he would do. Um, and ultimately, I mean, look, like I think during the regular season, I think it was when Tyler Glasnow got injured, he brought the team together and sent a message, right? Had a team meeting, something he doesn't normally do. Um, And my guess is at that point is kind of where things turned to the direction that they did. But he had this team's complete buy-in, man, and there in years past he probably didn't, right? If there are moves, if you take Rich Hill out of in the fourth inning of a game he's dominating, and what that sent a different message, right? That message wasn't, oh, I have complete confidence in my bullpen. That message was,
I
oh, I
don't
don't
have
trust
that.
you to face these hitters again,
Right.
right? It mattered. The group that you have matters, and the way you've managed them all along matters. So honestly, man, credit to the conviction that he had throughout this entire postseason. And he was probably one loss away in the postseason from losing his job, to be 100% honest. Um, but to still kind of do it the way he did it with the confidence he did, I have so much admiration for him, man. I really do. And all the things that I've said about him in the past, and look, I don't take any of those things back
No,
because those
right.
are things that happen, right?
Right.
There's been times where, look, I would say the highlight of his managerial career before the season was probably the NLCS against the Braves the year we won the World Series. 7 games in 7 days, pressed all the right buttons, right? Using Julio as a starter and a reliever in that series multiple times. Like that was probably where he shined, but that was just a moment, right? That was a
Right.
moment. You stretch that moment throughout an entire postseason this year, and it was really starting to shine. And I think in the NLCS is when everybody was really starting to take notice.
Yeah, for sure. I've been through through the roller coaster with Dave Roberts as well as a fan. There was a time where I defended the guy all the way up until like I think 2021, really 2022 is when I jumped off the train. I'm like, I can't defend this guy anymore. I defended him through the NLDS stuff in 2019 against the Nats. Um, but then that Padres series for me in 2022 was just like, man, that game four was so mismanaged, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, yeah, there's just no more defending anymore. And then I jokingly switched back onto the Dave Roberts train, and when I got to meet him on, in the personal kind of pregame thing that happened, and it was more of a joke, but then just seeing the differences and just seeing how he was handling these specific moments differently, it was like there's growth here that you cannot deny. And like you're mentioning the recipe of the dynamic of the clubhouse, the guys that he had, the buy-in to be able to, hunt a game two or whatever like that. And between Roberts' growth and then also, mind you, game three, remember, that's Walker Bueller really arriving, if you will. That's our guy returning. That's our game. What was it? Game three of the 2018 World Series guy showing up again. And it's like, okay, we're good. We're good. And yeah, so but as far as the Dave Roberts aspect, it was just like he has the clubhouse. They're following his lead. And maybe in years past that may not have been the case. Maybe not 100%. Maybe it was a high 90s%, but that mattered, I think. And so yeah, absolutely, man. This guy should be the Dodger manager as long as he wants to, obviously. And I
Dog,
think
he's at this point, look at the trajectory, it's Tommy. Like that's kind of where
yeah,
it's headed, right?
yeah,
A lot obviously can happen and a lot has already happened to be honest, but like it's our generation's version. And I don't know what people used to say Tommy about Tommy early in his career. I don't know. Um Also, Tommy didn't have social media, so like
right.
it's a different world that we live in. But also too, man, like I want to go back to the fact that the Dodgers didn't coast the last month of the season, right? The team was being managed differently, like and partially because it had to be because you had to clinch a division and you had to win ball games towards the end of the season. But there was no auditions towards the end of the season. You were playing every game to win it, right? And so you didn't have this like the team was not on their heels ever, right? They
No,
couldn't be, right? So they had already grown accustomed to trusting these decisions, and it wasn't just like, hey, the lights are on now, like let's go. No, the lights had been on already for a long time, right? Probably since what, August, I would say, when the Padres were really looking like a really really good team that could maybe knock us off. So. Uh, So that's what it goes to. And look, like going back to what Roberts has said multiple times, where the game honors you. Well, I want to tell Dave Roberts that the game honored him too, right?
Absolutely.
Because Dave Roberts does specific things, right? And it's been mentioned in different places. Dave Roberts does the thing where and it sounds weird, but he puts his hand on every single one of his players every day, right? I know it sounds weird, but it's whether it's a handshake, whether it's a hug, whether it's a pat on the back, whatever it is, he physically puts his hand on every single one of his players every single day, right? And I'm pretty sure that extends through his coaching staff and everything too, right? That's something that means a lot to him because he wants every player to feel that they connected with their leader at some point that day. That's something that I really believe in. I'm a manager where I work, and obviously there's different rules in the corporate environment, right? But I try to give everybody a fist pump every single day when I come in because, hey, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Let's connect, right? Even if it's just a little thing. Roberts will go as far as asking about their families and asking about like he does that, right? Well, if you can allow me to fast forward a little bit to game five of the World Series, walks up to the mound to Blake Trinan, puts his hands on his chest, asks him how he feels, and gets a real pulse check. And it's not fabricated in that moment. It's something that he always does, right? He gets the feeling from Blake Trinan that Blake Trinan he wants to get Giancarlo Stanton out. Lo and behold, he does. The game honored Dave Roberts this postseason for the mentality that he has, the positivity that he has, and he had his moment, man. He had his moment, and the baseball world really, I think, found out, you know, uh, because those are the little things, right? Those little things, all the times that he has to eat crow for his players in a press conference, all the time, all of that, Um, how many times have we criticized him when a player does something bad and he's like, "Oh, I just felt good about that player in that situation," and we want to blame Dave Roberts, and sometimes sure it might be his fault, whatever, maybe not, 51-49 decision, but he felt good about that guy in that spot. It's as easy as that guy coming through in that situation where he doesn't have to be asked that question,
Right.
right? And in this postseason, the game honored him, um, and his team honored him, man. So, um, yeah, again, that started to really, really shine in the NLCS with just I mean, look, our wins in that series were not just we're nail biters, man. Like we beat their ass. Like it was domination, right? And a 6 game series makes it sound closer than it really was.
Yeah, right. It does.
Complete overmatched them. Um, Essentially punted game one and then or game two, I mean, and then the second Flaherty start just wasn't a good one, and the rest of that game was managed similarly to game two. So it ended up coming back home and we just took care of business. I mean, that's really what it's really what it was. So
Yeah,
uh,
I just want to echo the hand, the hand on your player, the physical touch and contact approach to Dave Roberts. Remember that viral moment with Johan Ramirez, like in May or whatever, where he goes and he hugs the guy on the mound, and
yeah.
he's just like hugging him, talking to him, and just trying to cheer the guy up. And the guy looked like he was pitching like terribly.
Hmm.
DFA candidate right then and there. And I think I remember like from that point on, for like his next several outings, he was scoreless, 0 ERA, um, kind of lights out for a little while. I think he even got a save in Yankee Stadium or whatever,
I
or
think you're
against the Yankees. Yeah, so it's just that aspect, it's that connection, that belief that when you're building a team, when you're managing and you're a team in whatever context, when you're a leader, you have that connection. There's something we talked about the palpable feeling in the stadium. There's something palpable about that. There's something that is, it's an abstract thing, but it's also something that is very palpable that you can feel and that you can that proves effective, I think. And certainly it did for us throughout the postseason run. And then as we're going in the NLCS, yeah, it ultimately proved to be a mismatch, and the better team just imposed their will eventually and
Mhm.
moved on.
Yeah. So look, he shined again in the World Series, and we'll get to that. But um, I think it's important to to give him his flowers, and a lot of people are. I'm not saying that nobody's doing it, but uh, I think important for people like me that have said the things that I've said. I've gone as far as
Same.
saying that he's not the right leader for this team. Like I've
Yeah.
said those things, and credit to the Dodgers organization because there's so much of that job that is so hard to hire for, right? Um, right? The type of manager that it takes to manage that type of talent, to get some type of buy-in, to have the intellect to juggle all the analytics and everything, and to be expected to make the decisions on the field. And I mean, results are results, but they stuck with them. And they stuck with them. That's their guy, and here we are. So
I think it's
it's
just
really,
it's a
really
lesson
happy.
in growth, if you ask me. Just because I also, after the 2022 thing, I'm like, if you bring Dave Roberts back, then what's the definition of insanity? Doing the
Yeah,
same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, the thing is, they're not doing the same thing over and over because he grew,
yeah,
the team grew, the roster grew, and so it's not insane. It's actually, it's an incredible testament to the grind and to leadership and to believing in the guy person.
yeah, yeah. And eventually there's going to be a breakthrough, as long as you do things the right way, right?
Right.
And work hard, you work right, and eventually things are going to happen for you. And um, so yeah, man. Look, we closed that game out in six, or that series out in 6 games, in Los Angeles, which we've got our moment. Like we clinched we clinched the trip to the World Series in Dodger Stadium, which was really, really, really special. Um, and and then yeah, we knew going into Game 6 what the matchup would be in the World Series. But anything in particular, Frank, that really stood out to you in the NLCS?
Bueller, the swing and miss stuff, and just the offense, just coming through time and time and again. Again, it was just like, okay, there's no more narrative, even with the two losses that were kind of viewed as punted or whatever. Maybe that was part of the frustration for the people that were like, why aren't we going all in this game? We have the offense to come back. Um, it was really playing the long game. It was really setting up your next game and setting up your arms and keeping them in a good place to succeed. I think another thing that we didn't mention, but it was this Otani versus Lindor narrative and the MVP stuff. And hey, Lindor, hats off to the guy. Any other season, he's an MVP if you go through history, and in many other seasons.
Great player, and he's been that guy for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But there's just a different level. There's a point where someone's undeniable, right? And that's Otani this season. But yeah, so just going into that Game 6, facing Sean Manaea again for the second time, it's like this guy's not going to do it again. All right, they saw this guy. It's gonna be all right.
yeah.
And it was.
And it was. I think he was out of the game. I think the second inning or maybe third inning.
Right.
One guy I did want to shout out, especially for what he did in the NLCS, is Max Muncy. He, like, I don't know if he tied or beat like a on consecutive on base streak record for the postseason, and like
Yeah.
more than half of them were walks, which
Yeah,
is
he was
just
like,
insane. Like,
it was
uh,
something like 12 consecutive plate
yeah,
appearances, and three of them were hits.
yeah, it's crazy. Like it's nuts. So his ability to just kind of keep the line moving, make the pitcher throw a lot of pitches, and that's really what that series came down to too. Is we were knocking out a lot of their starters early in the games, right? Like that's what a lot, what a lot of our victories started with. Um, but in addition to that, for Max Muncy, I want to shout him out for the defense he played at third base the entire postseason.
Yes.
We got a real third baseman in Max Muncy now, right? Uh, I remember when we first got him on our roster, like he wasn't even a good first baseman, like, right? Like then he started learning how to dig a few, balls at first base, but he had a bat, um, and then the DH comes to the National League, so it's like, oh, we have a DH, cool, cool. It was almost like a shoe in, because we signed Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman's on the team, But then we signed Shohei Ohtani. So Max Muncy was going to have to figure something out, right? And to his credit, he played a hell of a third base, right? From some of the balls that he would come in on and dig them and on, in one motion, throw him to first base, quickly turn double plays. Like he knew exactly the hop that he was going to get. And in one motion, go to second base, allowing them to throw the guys out at first. I think there was one with, I think Tatis in particular, where it was just like a two hopper, boom.
Yeah.
You don't see that 2 years ago. Like you don't see that from Max Muncy. Um, and the accuracy of his throws and like those are things that you can credit to the work that we don't see, like the work that we people don't really care to probably even talk about. Like, oh yeah, Max Muncy's taking ground balls. Congratulations. No, he's become a real third baseman. And we don't just have him there to hide him, like he's for
Yeah.
real.
I mean, there was that season him playing second base.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're like, dude, what? But just that mentality, that willingness to go out there and like grind and try to become an adequate second baseman, you know what I mean? Just to keep staying in the lineup,
Yeah.
ultimately moving to the corner spot in third base. Yeah, and he performed. He performed defensively. Absolutely. There was just one where I thought what was in in the World Series where I searched for it. I wanted to see like a better angle, a replay where he jumped on that.
Oh,
Uh,
he got high enough. He was just late.
he
Like
was late.
he
Okay.
got there like which I mean, whatever. Not everybody's Manny Machado. Like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's probably where we stopped for a little bit. He's a shorter, pudgier guy. But, um, but yeah. And in addition to that, Mookie Betts, man, Mookie Betts. Talk about narratives with Dave Roberts and all of this. Mookie Betts came out saying like, I've sucked in the postseason. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter unless I do some. No, like nothing matters unless I perform in this postseason. And he did. He absolutely 100% did. And that's through the NLDS, the NLCS, and the World Series. Playing really good baseball, right? Not just hitting home runs or whatever, like baseball wise, right? With his base
Right.
running and um, he's lost a lot of speed. Like he's not the same fast player that he once was, but excellent base running.
Yeah.
Some of the routes he took to the balls in right field. But there was one in particular where I forget who hit the ball, but he pretty much makes a straight across route to his right, to cut a ball off and keep a play to a
A
single.
gap shot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I think it ended up proving to be really important because that run would have, if he didn't do that, I think the run would have ended up scoring eventually. And um, the little things, man, right? Like, I mean, the things that people talk about. But a total redemption postseason for Mookie Betts. I mean, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think just for him to own that the way he did so publicly, like it's been on me and I've sucked and I have to perform, really put that onus on his own shoulders. Um, it speaks to the confidence, and it speaks to a really belief in yourself. Like I know I can and will come through. And again, dude was having an MVP season. And
Yeah.
I venture to even say he'd have gave Otani a run for his money
Mhm.
if he stayed healthy this season, just because his numbers would have been incredibly impressive. He wouldn't have had anything that jumped out at you, such as a 50-50 mark or whatever, but just across the board, his numbers.
He was racking up a lot of war playing shortstop, right? Like that
Yeah.
move in and of itself. Like, hey, you MVP All Star, $400 million player, go play shortstop. Like what? Like, and he
Yeah.
did it, and um, I mean, it just proves that what the objective is, right? It's to win baseball games, and that opened the door for Miguel Rojas to kind of have the season that he had when he got his injury,
Yeah.
um, and eventually he moved back to the position he was more comfortable with, um, but
I
a
just
hell
think
of a season from him.
one microcosm for Mookie that really kind of maybe puts it into perspective is, narrative busting and Forrest Gump shaking off all the leg splints or whatever. The Profar situation in San Diego, he gets robbed of that homer. And it's like, this, here, this is where it goes downhill for us, right? This is our, like, it could have been. This is going to be our what if moment.
Mhm.
And the dude comes back in back to back games and does the same exact thing. And
Yeah.
this time clears the fence, you know what I mean? Or,
Mhm.
puts it out of reach. And so just that shows you like, yeah, that nothing was going to deter not only him, but when that's happening with a superstar on your team, man, that just translates. That's a
Yeah.
domino effect. And
Yeah.
so and he just continued to perform throughout the rest of the postseason. And
Yeah.
ultimately, the game, we'll get to it, but the final RBI of the postseason run in the World Series Game Five was a Mookie sac fly. But if you see him off the bat, the dude's like fist pumping. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wasn't shooting for the fans. He wasn't over swinging or anything like going outside of himself. Dude is like, okay, I got enough of that. Like, we got the lead now.
Yeah. Doing the job. Yeah.
Yep.
100%. And that's Mookie Betts. Like that. Like, do you remember the excitement when we got Mookie Betts?
Right.
Like the kind of star that we had just acquired. Um, I mean, it was all on display. It was all on display, and all the things that Red Sox fans told us that he was. I mean, it was all there for us to see, and it's so exciting for that to happen for him too. And uh, I think this might be an exaggeration. I think Mookie Betts really became a Dodger this postseason.
Wow.
Um, he got added to the 2020 team and won a World Series, right? So that's very, very important. Um, but the disappointment of, you know, 21 even, 22, 23, uh, it was um it was hard for the entire fan base to really wrap their arms around him and for him to really feel probably accepted.
Yeah.
But in this postseason, I mean, even the things that he said since, like it really feels like he became a Dodger, which is sad. It took this, to take this long to really maybe come to that realization. It's probably a little bit of an exaggeration too, but that's kind of the feeling that I have right now. It's like, oh man, like this guy. That's it. He's gonna wear a Dodger hat in the Hall of Fame, like that.
Right. Right.
With this one. So, um,
Well, even what he said in the celebration, I got 3 rings, but then I want to fill up my hand, and
yeah, yeah,
just his idea is like, man, I want to add to this franchise. I want to be an
yeah,
icon in this franchise. It just
yeah.
goes into Dodger lore, and he already is, but just keep adding to that. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's tough to, you know, I think especially earlier years, like, of course he's going to compare the fan bases. Of course he's going to compare his time in Boston with the Red Sox at Fenway, winning a championship, to his time in LA. But I think this helped him get over a little bit of that hump there. Because this is the team that made the financial commitment to him. Like the team that said, "Hey, yeah, they might have drafted you, but we're proving it to you financially how much you're going to mean to us." And for it to get reciprocated, and it's just a perfect situation, I think, at this point. So um, yeah, so shout out to him, man. I mean, I think he's I mean, well on his way to hopefully contribute to more postseason runs. Um, so yeah, I mean that was the NLCS. We haven't really talked about Shohei much. He hit a million-foot home run down the right field line against,
Right.
in New York, hit another shot to lead off a game, right, in New York. Had his impact there. And all the while, Freddie Freeman is often on the field, right? Like he's playing one game, sitting another. When he's in there, he's giving us his absolute 100%, taking the extra base, doing his best for the injuries, as we come to find out,
Right.
not affect him. But there did get to the point, game six, where he just wasn't ready to go, which in an elimination game for one of your MVPs to not be ready to go, that's significant. That is absolutely significant. And we ended the series on that note with him, right? So I think that can lead us right into right into the World Series, man. We knew going into Game Six who the opponent would be in the World Series, right? Because the Yankees had played the Guardians. I think they had beat them in one less game than we had beat the Mets. Uh, and I mean, I was really focused on the NLCS as it was happening, and when it was all over, I got the oh shit, it's the Yankees feeling, right? It's like, oh my God, we're gonna get Dodgers Yankees. which has kind of just been a pipe dream our entire lives. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mm.
kind of been that
Kids, yeah.
that dream matchup that probably didn't even feel real, you know? Um, I'll let you go first, right? Like the what type of significance did it really have to you? Some people maybe more than others or less than others, but like what did Dodgers Yankees knowing that that was going to happen mean to you?
For me, it was, when they talk about, when every player talks about when they come through that big moment in the postseason or whatever, they talk about, man, this is what you dream as a kid, game seven, you hit the home run or whatever, walk off.
Mhm.
Well, for me growing up playing baseball and dreaming, it was just like, it was always against the Yankees. It was like, oh man, it takes down the Yankees. Like, I grew up with that healthy Yankee hate. They were the evil empire. And uh, through their run in the late 90s and their dynasties, just hating them, rooting hard against them, no matter who played them. And um, so there's that backdrop. Now, mind you, having seen the current franchise with, George Steinbrenner's gone, just the new leadership in the last decade or so, and seeing a lot of their disappointments, their disappointing postseason runs. I didn't feel like we're facing that same, like, they're not the evil empire, you know what I mean, per se. Like they're
Mhm.
not, they still have elements of that, but so there wasn't necessarily that. So there was something lacking initially,
Mhm.
and especially because there was the 4 day gap, and it was just. But then as we started getting there, and it was like, okay, game one is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Game one is later today. It was like, oh gosh, it's Dodgers, Yankees. It's and you just hearing you just you know recalling everything that you know about the history of these two franchises, and it's essentially Celtics Lakers. It's what I mean. It's whatever Duke North Carolina. I don't know, like all the different like top five rivalries in all of sports history. This is up there, and we're gonna get to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the moment where it kind of hit me, and I'm a sucker for this moment, and it happens every season and every series. But like when they post the video of them like painting the logos on the field,
Okay.
um, when they were painting the World Series logo on the field, that always hits me because I remember the feeling I got in 2017 when I got to see it with my own eyes for the first time, like seeing the World Series logo, um, just saying like, oh my God, we're here. Like it. Remembering that probably adds to the excitement as well, but. Um, the fact that it's been a few years since we've seen that at Dodger Stadium, right? It's been since what 6 years, maybe six, since we've seen the World Series logo. That was the moment I really, really, really started thinking about it, and it was so layered, man. It was so layered, and what I
Yeah.
kind of want to start with is growing up. Growing up, like you and I have been Dodger fans our entire lives, and it wasn't always a sexy thing to be a Dodger fan, man. Like it wasn't. It was a little weird to be a Dodger fanatic because
Yeah.
the team wasn't always that good. Like, hey, you're freaking going crazy over like what Eric Karros, hey, all right, cool, yeah, Sean Green's pretty good, but
Todd
like,
Hollinsworth, man.
yeah, yeah, is it that
Rookie of the
serious?
year.
Exactly. Hey, you're really excited that they signed Kevin Brown, huh? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
like, yeah,
Rick,
dude. So it wasn't always the cool thing. Like it wasn't, right?
right. Especially
Even
in the
though
shadow of the Lakers. Right.
exactly that, right? And look, I was 7 years old when Kobe and Shaq won their first championship. So that's my childhood, right? That's my youth, right? But for me to be the weirdo that's the baseball guy,
Yeah.
right? And at the time, the Yankees are dominating, right? The Yankees are that team. They had gone to the World Series, whatever, 6 out of 8 years. I don't know, something crazy, right? Won it 3 years in a row. Um, Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Andy Pettit, Roger Clemens,
Mariano. Yeah.
Mariano Rivera, like Jorge Posada.
Yeah.
It just the list would go on and on and on. And these guys were the they were the team. They were the organization, right? They were at the top of the entire sport. And so there are people that I grew up with that chose to root for the Yankees because that was a team that was winning, right?
Yeah.
That was the mindset, right? And so the part that like even makes me a little emotional is in those times remembering like those people like making fun of the Dodgers, you know? Like those
Right.
people would like be like, "Oh, the Dodgers suck," like Yankees, Yankees. And in my head, I'm like, "You idiot! You're what the hell do you even know about New York? You've never been to New York. Like I'm rooting
Right.
for the team that's from here. You know, like that's the team that I ride with. Um, that's the team that I mean, look, I go to those games. Like my dad takes me to these games. My dad roots for Fernando Valenzuela. Like why would you root for the Yankees, man? Oh, because the Yankees, Dodgers suck. They don't even make it to the playoffs. This and that. And
Mm,
Derek Jeter, this and that. I'm like, man. And then every time the Dodgers would kind of randomly make it to the playoffs, they'd get eliminated in the first round, man. They'd get thrown out twice at home on the same play. They would like just make a complete ass out of themselves. And there we were, man. There we were, right? Like still there. Still there. And over the years, Frank, like it's clearly become part of our identities, right? Like, and to the point where when things happen with the Dodgers, people want to talk to me about it, like
yeah.
because of that, right? But I remember clearly people growing up, right? And these are the same people that are posting on their Instagram stories now how excited they are the Dodgers are winning the World Series, by the
Yeah,
way.
of course.
So let me have that one at least. But I remember growing up, people say, "Oh, Dodgers suck, Yankees, Yankees, Yankees." And there I was, like, all right, well, yeah, okay. I mean, there's nothing I can really say, like I wish they were better. Um, and so I remember it vividly. So like going into the series, I'm like, oh my God, like here we are. So I didn't see it as obviously just another matchup, right? Like nobody did. But for me, I actually really saw it as like, look, obviously 27 is 27, right? Like 27 rings is 27 rings. Nothing can take that away from them, right? Projecting forward, it's our league.
Yeah.
And winning this series would prove that, right? Like winning this series is the kickoff. It is the baton being handed to the Dodgers until God knows how long, right? That's how I really felt about this series.
Wow.
So it had that significance to me, man. And yes, you look at the billboards and you see, or look at the, whatever, the promos and you see Judge Stanton Soto, Shohei Mookie Freddie, the pitching, like it's so big I didn't know what to feel in the moment. Um, but it had that type of significance to me because I remember growing up, man. I remember I was like, wow, like, and yeah, you're right. Like I used to throw a ball at a brick wall or chimney, right? It was a big brick chimney that would like protrude from the wall in the front yard. I would throw ball at a brick wall. And if you pretended you're if you're throwing at a ball at a wall pretending you're in a World Series, yeah, it's gonna be against the Yankees because they were there every freaking year.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was, and they felt so big. They felt so big. And for the Dodgers to have gone what they've gone through with the ownership and to get to where they are now, like it's crazy. It's who would have predicted it, right? Because it made no sense in the past for the Dodgers not to be amazing, right? Like you're in Los Angeles, you have one of the most rabid fan bases. Like you have just an endless well of income. Like what sense does it make to not be great? Well, we finally got the ownership group that knew what to do with that, right? And um, in a matter of about a decade, here we are.
Right.
Here we are.
And like you said, projecting forward, it's just like I love what Kike said, about going back to 2020 Fan Fest, and when he said, the Dodgers are going to be the team of the decade. So far, that's proven true. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think I would just say, going into the matchup, this is like one of the first times where the World Series for me felt like a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? The Super Bowl is the most massive sporting event, in the world, whatever. I mean, second to the World Cup or something, but the single game. And for me, like the World Series, like every game was gonna feel like a Super Bowl matchup for me, like
Yeah.
because it was Dodgers Yankees.
Hmm.
I felt a little bit of that, maybe with Lakers Celtics in '09 or 8 or whenever that was, but '08, 2010 or something. But not to this level. And that's what it felt like.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of good work that the Yankees could do going forward to put themselves right back there, right? But it feels a little bit like kind of what the Lakers maybe went through post post Dr. Bus passing away. Like it feels
Hmm.
a little bit like that. And yeah, you'll get to the playoffs, you can sign the top free agents, whatever, but it doesn't mean that you have the shine. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
everything's there that was there before. And so the Yankees are kind of there right now, and I think there's a lot that they can do and might do to kind of put them back up there. But the Dodgers aren't going anywhere. You know what I mean? And what's proven that is yes, we've been to the 12 consecutive years we've been to the postseason. Look at the team from 3 years ago. Look at the team from 5 years ago, 7 years.
Yeah.
It's not the team we have now. Like
Right.
it keeps evolving, right? So that's why I feel so good about it. And so obviously leading up to the series, the text messages, hey, every time you run into something, they want to talk about the series. And it's like, yeah, man, like, because it is special. It is special that all eyes are on this series now. And it's our Dodgers, man. It's my Dodgers. Like, it's great. It's great because, you know, I think in 2017 there was a massive significance to it because of it had been so long, right? Um, and then we had just lost in 2017 when we went to 2018. But it didn't feel like we had a. I mean, it felt like a little bit of a mismatch there too. Um, but we were on the other side of it because Dodgers Red Sox was a big deal. But it felt like we were supposed to be there, but then it felt like, oh yeah, they're better, you know. Uh, and then 2020 was just weird, obviously, like just a
Yeah.
weird year. Um, so the fact that there was no games at Dodger Stadium for that whole series obviously makes it feel a little bit different. But this one is like, hey, all eyes are on the Dodgers. I mean, Dodgers versus Yankees. Um, so we go into game one, right? Jack Flaherty on the mound versus Garrett Cole, right? My opinion, Jack Flaherty pitches a very, very, very good game. Uh, makes maybe 1 to 2 mistakes, and Giancarlo Stanton makes him pay for that, right? Takes just sends a rocket down the left field line, puts us down 2-0. Um, to be honest, a lot of that game is a blur, like, because we know kind of how it ended. Uh, but all in all, we were down 3-2 in the bottom of the 10th inning, right?
Yeah. Goes to extras.
Yeah. Um,
I think, but before going to extras and setting that up though, that ninth inning, Copa gets those two outs, and then the fan interaction. Um, that could have been an insurance one going into the ninth inning. Yeah, that was a big thing. I mean,
yeah. The fan reaching over to catch the
right.
ball, right? Because there was a couple of those. There was one in New York too, where that one was a lot more controversial. But even while that happened, I remember it because it was Gleyber Torres, right? Gleyber Torres that hit that
Yeah.
ball. Um, I was watching the game here with my parents and my brother, and they're like, "Oh, what an idiot! He like reached over and caught it." I was like, "Yes, I mean, don't do that, I guess, you know." Um, but there is some significance to that too, because the fact that the fan reached over, caught it, and it gets called a double that way and it's awkward, right?
Yeah.
Is a lot different than Gleyber Torres going into second base, turning towards dugout and be like, yeah, and
Yeah,
throws him
exactly.
up, and it's a momentum shift, right? So shout out to that fan, right? I'm not endorsing
Right.
getting into the field of play, but it did it did end up mattering, man. Like, so if anybody D'd up, right? Not like the Yankees fan, like
Yeah, yeah,
it was
right.
our guy, dude. Like,
Yeah.
so so shout out to him, but so that happened, and uh you get to the 10th inning. I think it was, what is it? Runners at first and second. We're down by a run because the Yankees scored in the top half of the inning, right?
Yeah, you got Lux and Otani coming up.
Yeah. And Lux strikes out.
Yep.
Lux strikes out. So that's 2 outs. No,
No,
1 out.
no. Otani was the second out.
Yeah, that's 1 out. Shohei comes up to bat. So they bring in a lefty, right? Uh, now look, they had Tim Hill and Nestor Cortez warming up in the bullpen. Tim Hill is a guy that we're very familiar with, right? Pitched in San Diego. Now he's got a nice little mustache over there in New York. But he's awkward. He's awkward, right? Doesn't mean he's not hittable. Doesn't mean anything. But like it's just an awkward at bat. Um, And he's been a very reliable guy for the Yankees throughout the entire postseason, right? Whereas Nestor Cortez in over the years has been a reliable guy, but they just activate him because he's coming off an injury. Not really a bullpen arm, has always been a starter. They go to Nestor Cortez, right? Which in that moment we're thinking like, okay, it's kind of weird, but our backs are against the wall either way, right? Um, Throws one pitch to Shohei Ohtani, flies it to down the left field line. It's slicing, and Verdugo catches it, flips into the crowd, right? Since his feet leave the ground and go into the other side of the wall, it's an automatic. You caught the ball in play, then you went out of play, runners advance, right? So now we got runners at second and third with two outs, right? And we got Mookie Betts up to bat, who's been our probably most consistent hitter throughout the entire postseason. Um, Revisionist history tells you that that's the wrong move, obviously, because of what happened. Um, but guys, you don't want Nestor Cortez facing Mookie Betts in that situation. It makes no sense, right? Especially knowing that the guy that's hitting behind Mookie Betts is coming off an injury, one that you know about. There's another one you don't even know about, right? Um, so the move is to intentionally walk Mookie Betts. He gets the first base, and up to get bat goes Freddie, right? We all know what happened from there, Frank, but let's pause it right here. Um, we know there was a lot of parallels made to another significant moment in Dodger history. My question to you is, at what point did you connect those dots?
So I mind you, we said Gavin Lux struck out. Gavin Lux walked, and then Otani got out
Okay.
in that inning. So yeah, I just remember that. I'm like, yeah, shout out to Lux for the walk. He did
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
two good
A
things
couple
he
of
did
very
this
important at bats in
postseason.
the World Series. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Um, so I could, well, to be honest, I connected the dots. It wasn't even me. My son connected those dots. So my son tells me going into game one, he's like, Dad, the game's gonna come down to an injured lefty.
Get out of
Freddie
here.
Freeman are gonna come up and he's gonna hit a walk off. And I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, shut up. Like, I didn't even
Okay,
dismiss it.
okay, dude. Yeah.
And so I like completely dismissed that. Like, yeah,
Of
ha ha
course, dude.
ha,
Of
yeah,
course, dude.
whatever. Um,
Life ain't that
Lar yeah,
good.
life ain't that good, right? Number one. Number two, like Freddie's like, no. Look at what we saw from him. Like he can't plan on his front foot. You know what I mean? He's just um maybe a walk-off single or something, but whatever. Anyway. Um, so I didn't even have that in mind at the moment because I was more nervous, obviously. And I'm like, man, if we lose game one, we could still win the series, but this is a gut punch. You know what I mean? If this happens like this. So bases loaded. I'm literally hoping for a base hit, a flare, something that falls and finds grass. Um, and then, just the fans, the way we are as fans, I'm thinking like, oh, what if you get thrown out the play? What if the winning run, gets thrown out and now we're going into extras with no more pitching left? I don't know. I was just thinking that all these scenarios.
Yep.
So as far as connecting the
You're
dots,
locked in. Like
yeah, I'm just like, oh, what can happen? Um, so it was more him connecting those dots than me in the moment leading up to the AB and the game itself. But
God bless his imagination.
I know childhood like faith,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
So yeah, I don't know if you probably want to get into the moment itself and when it happened. So here's the thing. I'm watching on a stream on my TV, right? And so naturally I'm always going to be a little bit behind um the
the
TV
broadcast.
stream, the broadcast. Yeah. So my neighbors downstairs are watching and we have our door open. It's kind of like a festive atmosphere um, in the apartments here, and so we hear a little bit of cheering going down there, but nothing that matched what happened to us.
Yeah.
So we hear some cheering, 15 seconds before Mookie actually steps into the box, and I'm thinking like, So my son's like, no, close the door, close the door. I don't want to know anything what happened. Like, what's going on? He's like, Dad, put your phone down. Don't be checking
Yeah.
Gamecast or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So, we're setting up the moment. And I'm like, okay, they're probably just cheering for Mookie Walkie.
There you go. That's the
That's what it's
right thing
supposed
to
to
tell yourself. They're behind, not you.
be. Yeah, exactly. They're cheering because Mookie just got put on. Like, oh, hey, that's what I was like, all right. So then we lock in to watch. And of course, first pitch. There wasn't even much time to.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, yeah, man. Look, like Nestor Cortez is on the mound. Um, I'm kind of like you. I'm so dialed into the situation that I'm thinking best case scenario, just a flare up the middle, drops, get some outfield grass, inside out something, hit by pitch, right? Lefty, lefty, that might be an option. Like time run scores, whatever, anything. Not in my wildest
No,
imagination did I think that what was going to happen was going to happen because it wasn't, dude, it wasn't realistic,
right.
right? Which is what every single person that tells you about that Kirk Gibson moment tells you. They tell you where they were, right? Right. My dad tells me every chance he gets, right, that he was there. He was at the game. He was sitting third base line. Like he tells me, they didn't expect him to play and they see him limping out of the dugout. What? Like they tell you that story. Well, for us, it wasn't even like like there's no way he's gonna get a ball over the fence. Are you kidding me? Like we're
Right.
lucky he's on the field, right?
Right.
Um, So the backstory here is that Freddie Freeman obviously had a brutal, brutal ankle injury the last like series, right, of the
This
season.
the Padres, yeah.
It was second to last series. Doesn't play the last series. So this whole time, we think he's nursing that injury only, right? And we think like, man, really, really bad. Um, but little did we know that in the time between the season ending and the postseason starting, he had some type of rib injury, right? Where like I don't know if like cartilage
Yeah,
was
broken
torn,
rib
like
cartilage or
torn.
something. Yeah.
He basically had like a hanging rib or something like that, right? Um, nobody knew. Nobody knew. How insane is it, Frank, that nobody knew about that injury?
That's the most impressive like
That is
factor of it all.
100%. I think after the fact, people were finding out that David Vassay knew about it. But he was like sworn to secrecy because they didn't want to give anybody a competitive advantage. And that
Right.
is the value of the Dodgers hiring media members as employees and not subbing them out to some other freaking publication, right? Like
Yeah,
that is the
absolutely.
value. That's what money buys you, dude. Like so investing in the right thing. So um nobody had any idea. And when Freddie Freeman talks about it retroactively now, he talks about how hearing Freddie Freeman talk about hitting is one of my favorite things to listen to.
Yeah.
There's music to my ears, right? He said that when he was watching Nestor Cortez film, he's faced Nestor Cortez.
Yeah.
He wasn't looking at his own film against Nestor Cortez. He was looking at Nestor Cortez's film against Shohei Ohtani, right? Which almost sounds arrogant, like, hey, dude, you're not Shohei. You know what I mean?
No, right.
Right? But his mindset was that, hey, every single time you're facing Shohei Ohtani, your back is up against the wall. And if I'm facing this guy, it's because his back is going to be up against the wall. So he's going to pitch me similarly. And it's a lot of spinny, soft stuff away. And then he tries to get up and in on guys. So knowing what his injury was, right? Only him, right? Yankees didn't know about this injury, right? He was looking for one pitch. One pitch he was looking for. And it's the only pitch he saw in the at bat, and he took it over the right field fence. Frank, the reason I asked you when did you make the correlation, um, is because I made it when the ball was flying,
Uh,
right?
okay.
Because how many times have you seen that highlight? Like five fly ball in the right field, shit,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on. To be honest, I didn't hear Davis's call
No,
the
I
first
didn't
time.
hear his call
I was
either.
going too
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't hear
Right.
it, right? And we'll get to Joe Davis because what a gift.
Oh,
Um, but ball in the air is when it sparks something in my head. And him running around the bases, doing this right, like that was his this,
yes. Yeah, right.
like, like it was the most beautiful fan experience result, say what you will, that you can go through.
Right.
And
Because it's a legendary moment, baseball moments, and it
yeah,
happened for your team
I
in
have the
in
chills right now.
favor of your team. Uh,
And man, like Frank, how long did we hear about 1988, man, before the Dodgers won the
exactly.
World Series?
Right.
We were
And
tired of it, right? Like we
even
were
still,
tired of
even
hearing
still,
about
even
it.
with 2020 happening, it's still a
It's
real one since 1988. You weren't even alive, or you're a baby. I was a baby, whatever.
to the point where we kind of resent it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like obviously you appreciate that moment, and it's legendary too. But you resent it. You're like, no, that let's get our own 1988, right? Boy, did we! Almost identical. I'm curious as to where that ball landed in comparison to Kirk Gibson's home run. It
Yeah,
has to be
I
like,
kept asking that too. Like, because
yeah,
remember they painted the Kirk Gibson
yeah,
season season
they
game?
need to do they need to yes, they need to do that again and compare because it was like the same, it hit the same wind stream. Like it was the same
Exactly.
thing, man. And the fact that he was looking for one pitch and he got it. Kurt Gibson in interviews afterwards, he said, hey, you're gonna throw me that backdoor slider, aren't you? Like in his
Yeah,
back of his
right,
head, he
right,
was
right.
thinking that he's looking for one pitch, and they got the one pitch that they could send over the fence. I mean, you it defies everything you if it the only way it feels, man, is divine. Like that's the only it makes it like
It's a spiritual experience.
it is honestly a spiritual experience. And um a little backstory here, like me and my dad have a tradition where um for game one of the World Series, I remember for 2017, because I was like, okay, my dad's good luck for game one of the World Series because he was at the Kirk Gibson. So I was like, I remember bugging him like in 2017, Dad, what time are you getting home? Like, we got to watch this game together. Um, and I remember just picking up Taco Bell,
Wow.
taking it to the house, and then we had beers at the house. And he gets home, we watched game one, right? And they won. It was the day Chris Taylor hit the leadoff home
Yeah,
run, the whole thing.
yeah.
So now we
Kershaw
have a
deal.
tradition.
Yeah.
Every time the Dodgers make it to the World Series, game one, we have to have Taco Bell and beers, right?
Fast food flavor. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out, the optimistic. Uh, so life update. I live in Palm Desert now.
All right.
I live in the Coachella Valley. Moved out here earlier this year. I love it. A couple hours away from from what I've called home my entire life. Uh, it complicates these types of traditions. You know what I mean? Like you want to make this happen. So shout out to my dad and my mom. They made the drive all the way out here. I got off work at 4:45. They basically met me here at the house.
Wow.
I pre-ordered the Taco Bell at the Taco Bell by the 10 freeway over here. Like they stopped, they picked it up, they brought it. Like my brother met
Sick.
me here, like, almost towards the end of the game because stupid traffic. Like they got here and we watched the game together. We have the picture. Like, so I got to hug my dad after that home run.
Wow.
And like it was spiritual, man. It is really what it was. And um, you know, I think now it's starting to settle, like what exactly happened, right? Because in that moment you don't believe it. Like it's not that you believe it, but you can't honestly contextualize it. Like
Right.
it's insane. It is insane. It feels scripted, right? Um, and so that's special, man. And that was going to be my question to you. Like I was like, I hope you're with I hope you're with your boy. Like watching that game.
No, yeah, absolutely. And so, I gave you the setup of of hearing our neighbors. So, I'm locked in thinking, okay, Mookie walked. All right, cool. So what's gonna happen here? You said you made a connection when the ball's in the air. I still, when the ball's in the air, I'm thinking, oh, did we just get Bellinger game two of 2017?
Oh
Like,
man, you got some trauma, man.
yeah, man, that's the first thing that went to my mind when he connected. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a warning track fly out, and it's gonna tease us.
At that off the swing, you don't know if there's topspin or not, nothing,
Right,
right?
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So when he has his bat up in the air, it's like, oh gosh, he got this. And so now it clears a fence. you celebrate the hugs, me and my son high five running in the living room, whatever. And it's just like, I think, man, I wish we were recording that moment. I think I recall saying, no way, like over and over and over,
Yeah.
like impossible. Because we're at the wild card game when Chris Taylor hit the walk off
Oh,
against the
beautiful.
Cardinals,
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
and I have a video of that, and I
Oh,
was like, oh my god, this is like flying over the fence. I'm like, no way. But I think in this thing, if I remember correctly, I'm just saying impossible. I think I was no way, it's impossible. It's impossible. There's
yeah.
no way that just happened. It's rounding the bases and it's just elation, you know what I mean? And it's going and thinking like, what did we just witness? Like a grand slam. Like, and then right away I'm thinking, my son's like, has that ever happened before? And the
No,
dude's
buddy.
a dude's a baseball historian. He's like, I don't think that's ever happened, ever, ever, ever. Check. So I'm like, oh man, for whatever little tidbit of details that don't match up to the Kirk Gibson home run, there's other details that make up for that,
They make it
right?
ours. It makes it
Make it
ours.
ours. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. 100,000%, man. And we got ours. We got our moment, man. And that's really what it comes down to. And we got our championship in 2020. Hell yeah, we did.
Right.
But there was no moment in that series that was like that, right?
Yeah. Even if you look back, you just think like, I remember Corey Seager went off. Obviously, the
Yeah, it was
final
just we out
out.
baseballed them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, exactly.
If anything, the moments were maybe like the NLCS or whatever, but
Yeah,
um,
Austin Barnes knocking Blake Snell out the game with the
yeah,
base
that's
hit.
probably yeah, that's probably it right there. Uh, and so I mean that happens. I yeah, I still don't have all the words for it. I was hoping I would, but um, and so that game ends, right? And you're kind of like, okay, we're up 1-0, right?
Yeah.
Like we're up 1 game to nothing. Is Freddie back? Like what? Like
Yeah. Right. Right.
was it just one swing? Like then you start connecting the Gibson dots. When he's running the bases, I remember I was like, Kirk Gibson, Kirk Gibson,
Yeah.
Kirk Gibson, like, but history tells us that Kirk Gibson didn't
He didn't
step on the
play.
field one more
Yeah.
time the rest of the series, like so you're okay, there's still a whole series to play, left to play, but you're like, there's no way that the Yankees can come back from that. There's no way, right? There's so many look, you know, it's comparable and um that's a team we had to beat still. And obviously these Dodgers don't even compare to those Dodgers, obviously. But I mean, I don't know, man. It was unbelievable. And then you get a good night's sleep, and the next day there's game two, man. So how did you feel about the series after that game?
Yeah. Totally confident. I mean, going into it, I felt like when we were talking about earlier Dodgers Yankees and letting that settle in, I felt like we're better than them. I was totally in on the fact because we're following the entire postseason picture. And I'm like, dude, they had an easy route. You know what I mean? You hate to say it that way or classify it that way, use the word easy, but they had a favorable route, right? They didn't have to face a Padres. Though. I don't even think they had to face a Mets team. Um, so it's like we had the more difficult, challenging route. You know what I mean? We were battle tested, and they are not.
Mhm.
And then the one thing I thought, like they have to have, if they have any shot at winning the series, they have to have both Cole games. That's their guy, and they have to because of the rest of their starters. Like they have to have those two games, and so they had it until they didn't. And so for them to lose that game, like now someone else is going to have to beat us twice. Two other guys outside of Cole, and we already
Yeah,
seen
they
Cole.
gotta trust Carlos Rodon to not let them go down 0-2,
Yeah,
which is, I mean, against the Dodgers, like okay, a lefty maybe, but um, And yeah, man, that following game, it was Yamamoto that had the ball, right?
Yamamoto, yep.
Which I love the way they lined up the pitching that series, man, with Flaherty going game one at home, right? Especially LA kid, all that.
Right.
And then keeping Yoshi at home for that first one, right? Because we still don't know everything about Yoshi, you know what I mean? And confident he could pitch on the road. But who better to pitch that first game at Yankee Stadium than Walker Buehler?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that is the only guy you want to throw pitch that game, especially with the 2-0 lead, you know what I mean? To kind of step on their throats. Um, so yeah, I mean, game two is a bit of a forgotten game, like because Dodgers kind of did what they needed to do. Let's not forget it got really close in the ninth inning, right? They were probably one swing away from what tying it or even maybe going ahead. In the ninth there, things started to get a little squirrely, um, but the Dodgers went up 2 games to none. And then we're going to New York, right? Get a whole day off between, and you're like, okay, like it's Walker Bueller. Like now knowing what happened, it seems silly to like question Walker Bueller, right? To
Hmm.
like say, oh, like, oh, we still don't to
Yeah,
feel like you didn't know what you're gonna get from him
on this side of it, right?
on this side of it. But in that moment, we're like, okay, like, all right, maybe his best start is behind him. Like maybe he already
Possibly.
threw his best game. Like we'll see. Like let's sustain the game. We'll see. Hopefully we don't use too much bullpen, this and that. Um, Walker Bueller spins an absolute gem, to where this postseason drew the line between old Walker and new Walker, but it allowed him to have the confidence of old Walker, if anything. So his off-speed pitch usage just went way up. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, it seems maybe that might seem simple. Yeah, okay, just throw more curveballs because your fastball's not as fast. No, you still need your fastball. Like you need to throw those off-speed pitches off of your fastball. And the fact that he was touching 95, 94, but it still had life. There's different, not every 95-mile-an-hour fastball is the same,
No.
right? Um, and he had a good 95. And if he's throwing everything off of that, and he was keeping Aaron Judge in the closet. Like the first 3 games, Aaron Judge was nobody, right?
Right.
The only guy that was kind of hitting was maybe Stanton, but it was kind of feast or famine.
Right.
Um, and Soto was clearly their best at bat. But even then, like we were kind of getting him sometimes. He had a home run at Dodger Stadium, um, but I mean, watching Walker Buehler doing what he was doing in that game. I mean, for me, I kind of got like that. Oh my God, he's doing it feeling that I kind of got in Game 5 of of the NLDS. But I mean, I don't know. What did you think of that performance?
For me, Walker Bueller had the postseason that I think a lot of us wanted Kershaw to have. Right.
Yeah.
Like we were hoping Kershaw would get right and just get to where he can be effective and contribute to the postseason.
Mhm.
And if there's any other guy, if you could say like Kershaw can't do it, man, it can't happen for him this postseason run, but it can happen for somebody else. The next guy you would pick unanimously is Walker Bueller,
Yeah.
and who was supposed to, kind of take that baton from Kershaw, be the ace and all of that, but all the injuries and stuff. And
Yeah.
and so the swing and miss stuff that returned for him against the Mets, it was like, okay, whether we win or lose this game three, obviously we're in a favorable position in the series. This is the guy we want out there. We want Walker Buehler on there. No matter what, he can go out there and have a situation like the Padres series, game three, where something like that happens, or he can do what he did. And everything was trending in the right direction for Buehler. Um, and sure enough, he went out and dealed, and the offense did their thing. We could probably interject here the pre-game performance for the Yankees in Game 3. Um,
Yeah. Okay. So Fat Joe comes out. look, let's backtrack to 2009. I think Jay-Z and Alicia Keys before the World Series, right? They play Empire State of Mind, which was a moment, right? That was like that went around. That was like when the song came out. Um, and I mean, it seems like it gave them life. And essentially, what that was is what Ice Cube did for our guys,
Yeah, yeah,
right? We heard. I think it came out like beforehand. Oh, Ice Cube's gonna have a performance before the game. I'm like, oh, that could be awkward. It could be awkward. Like it could be like, oh, what are you gonna put him stand him above the dugout, or how's that gonna work?
right.
But the fact that he came in through the center field fence and walked his way 395 feet to home plate, modified the lyrics to his song, talking about the Yankees, talking about baseball instead of basketball,
Yeah,
getting to home plate at the end of those songs, swinging the mic
I'm dropping.
and dropping the mic.
It was epic.
What?
I
What?
don't know who thought that up, man,
Could you imagine being imagine being whatever just happened the night before, right? Like, which was Freddie Freeman's insane moment, right? Being in that Yankees dugout and watching that, and I mean, the crowd was, I mean, I'm assuming I wasn't there, but I'm assuming they were into it.
Verdugo was into it.
Yeah, fucking Verdugo, what a clown. Uh, like, like automatically the Yankees are on their heels again. Like I feel like it mattered.
Yeah,
Or at the very least, it could give the Dodgers the fucking bravado that they needed.
right,
Like
right.
that which matters too. Um, and fast forward to Game 3. Well, the Yankees had to obviously, had to counter that with something, and so they bring out Fat Joe, who, as Kike Hernandez says, is not even fat anymore. It's just
Right.
Joe. Um, and look, man, I mean, I kind of feel for the guy because he was just that's such a losing situation to be in. Your
Right.
team is down 0-2. Ice Cube did it for them. They're asking you to do it. Like, yeah, the whole thing. Basically, my fear of what it could have been for Ice Cube at Dodger Stadium, that's what it was for Joe
That's
Fat.
what it was for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So
awkward.
exactly.
But especially on the heels of what Ice Cube
Yeah,
did.
you're down 2 games to none, dude. Like,
You would if you're a Yankee fan, you hope you would have countered with a at least someone at Ice Cube's level, if not someone at,
Jay-Z. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of like
yeah.
the only like that, you know?
Or
Um,
even if you're talking hip hop, like someone Wu-Tang Clan or something like that.
somebody,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I
Somebody
don't
that
know.
can claim New York or whatever. But like, I mean, it was Fat Joe. I mean, look, gravitates from the Bronx specifically, so whatever, but
Yeah.
it ain't the same, dude. It ain't, it's not Ice Cube. Um,
Bring Jennifer Lopez.
right, right. uh, so hey, so that game gets kicked off, and you're already down 2 games to none, and you got to face Walker Bueller, who is Walker Bueller, like every bit of Walker Bueller. Um, and the Dodgers kind of run away with that one too.
I think one of the big moments was obviously our bat showed up enough, Edmund and whatnot. But Teoscar, man, gunning down Giancarlo at the plate was huge. Could have been huge for the Yankees scoring that run.
Yeah, I think the Yankees kept looking for that moment, that like that moment to get them kicked, started. And I think eventually they got it offensively, mind you, but way too late, which if that run scores, yeah, I mean that's different. But in my opinion, it's a horrible send.
Yeah, agreed.
People say, oh, 2 outs, you got to get the run. Teoscar had the ball, shallow depth, and I think Stanton was like more than one step away from even touching third. Like it was a bad send. But that shows the desperation, right? That's the situation that the Dodgers put them in. Like that's what that was. So the throw comes to the plate, and he's out. And I think from that point, everybody kind of knew like Dodgers are going to win this game too, And the Yankees just didn't look. They looked horrible, basically. Judge was doing nothing, swinging at everything, and and after that game, the Dodgers were up 3 games to nothing against the Yankees in the World Series.
And
That is real, real.
right, being up 3-0 felt like no, like
Yeah.
what? Like there's no bump in the road here. There's no hiccup. There's no like, you know. Well, and I
It
must
felt too
say,
good to be true.
props to Dave Roberts. Look, Bueller deals for 5 innings. He's pitch count was manageable. He could have went out there for 6. Totally could have,
Mhm.
but he didn't. He went to his strength. Bullpen, did their thing. How many times have we seen Clayton Kershaw go out for an inning that he should not have gone out for? Not just Fred Roberts, Mattingly before him,
Mhm.
and whatnot. So just that as well, and making the right moves.
100%. And the situational awareness. So it's that situation. But look, 2 series before that, he kept him in there after he got his ass kicked. So like knowing exactly in that moment what
Right.
needed to be the move. I mean, that it's perfect. It's perfect. And to have the opportunity to go up 3 games to none in the World Series, you take it. You take it. That's when you go all in, right? Um, so now the Dodgers are up 3 games to none, and you still got 2 games left in New York, right? And right now at this point, we're kind of all hearing from everybody like, uh, oh, this World Series sucks, like it was supposed to be all hyped, the Yankees suck, this and that, this and that. I'm ecstatic. I'm like, yeah, I'll take this a million times out of a million, right?
Right.
I'm sure the casual fan wants 7 games, but not me, right? Like let's win it as soon as possible. And we're going into game 4. Um, we talked about it earlier, the Dave Roberts approach to bullpen games and in what situations, right? We saw an optimized bullpen game probably once, and that was in the NLDS against the
Yep. Game forward.
the Padres. Every bullpen game after that was managed a little differently. This being one of them. Ben Kasparius was the opener, and that pretty much told us all we needed to know about what the approach is going to be that game, right? That game we saw Ben Kasparius. Who else did we see?
Landon
Daniel Hudson,
Knack.
Landon Knack, um, Brent Honeywell, yeah, and Daniel Hudson. How many games during the regular season would you have seen those 4 people pitch in the same game?
Zero
Right.
in the same game. Right?
Right. And we saw it in the World Series, So uh, I was having fun watching, kind of like following your tweet throughout the entire time, and um, people having plenty to say about Dave Roberts in that situation, and um, so kind of walk us through that, man. Like what that approach was again, and what made you so confident that it was the right one.
Like, yeah, just from the opener that was selected, it wasn't our best. When we went to our best opener, it was like Brazier or I
Kopech.
think Kopech. Yeah. So, showing that is like, okay, we're gonna try to win this game, hope to win this game, but we're managing for the long run. Yes, we're up 3-0. So we have that in our favor. There's a difference between just banking on it and being like, oh, we got this in the bank versus utilizing the favorable, advantageous position you've put yourself in. And I think that's what we're doing. Um, and let's see what Clay Holmes can give them and what our offense can do. So, Kasparius, I think they wanted length out of him. They were hoping maybe 3-4 innings if he could have done that. He didn't.
Mhm.
And the big moment was obviously Daniel Hudson, and so the Grand Slam. Once that happens, it's like, okay, let's manage for Game 5.
Mhm.
Like, or again, same. And here's my thing. It's like I get it. Here I was telling you, I thought Freddie's Grand Slam was a Ballinger warning track flyout. You know what I mean? Like I get that as a fan with the context that we have and all the heartbreak and all of this, that, and the other. There's got to come a moment too when that bride feels like, okay, this is not the same heartbreaker. This guy is different. This is a keeper or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like we had plenty of those moments as fans this particular run for us to get to arrive there to say like no, like losing Game 4 doesn't really mean anything for Game 5, especially if you manage it the
Mhm.
right. I kept telling my son reoccurringly, game to game momentum doesn't exist. I don't believe that. It's in game momentum exists. And now he's been using that with all his friends. He goes and tells them like in game momentum, throwing out at the play, whatever. But yeah, game to game momentum. What is it? What do they always say is like,
As
momentum
good as
is
as good as your next pitcher.
as good as your next starting pitcher, right? And so our starting pitcher was Ben Kasparius, with all due respect. Okay. Um, and so, it was like, all right, let them have their little fun. At this point, I was definitely feeling like, okay, let's gentlemen sweep this. They got
Yeah.
their one,
Hmm.
right? Totally confident going into game 5. Naturally, I thought Flaherty was going to do better than he ultimately did in his performance, but still definitely confident. Game 4, no matter what, and running up the score, all the score just got away. It was like 11 or whatever. Yeah, I wasn't thinking anything about game 5. I was just hoping there wasn't any mismanaging, panicking, and there wasn't.
Right.
And so that's really where the confidence was, is watching this. I'll just tell you this. I'm not Dave Roberts, but I am a coach, and I've been coaching for like 10 years, and I've had to make decisions with the next game in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially at that level, you have 2 games in a day, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And so there was a moment last season. My son was like my best pitcher on the team, for that team. And I was like, still little. This was in our rec season. And he had broken his arm. He was coming back from an injury, whatever, whatever, and he wanted to throw the playoff game to put us into the championship game. I was like, I can't throw you this game. I throw you this game, I can't throw you in the championship game, right? And you're making moves. And then there was a moment in that playoff game. I had a guy step up and just kind of like really hold it down for us, so I didn't have to even think about throwing them. But just that idea, that framework, that concept. I'm not trying to compare myself to Dave Roberts or whatever, but just that concept of having the next game in mind and down the line. And we saw him do that with the Mets, and we saw how it worked to our favor. And so it's like, dude, he's got this. Like we're good.
Mhm.
I know. If you're doom and gloom, you're thinking, oh, but then they got Cole, and then now we got to go back. And I'm like, yeah. And if they win game 5, we got Yamamoto, who just tealed,
Again, and
right?
then
And then Bueller. So let's hold off. That's where I was mentally.
yeah. Yeah. No, those are applicable experiences, and I think they have a lot of value. I don't think at any point I thought it was the wrong thing they were doing, right? In that moment I was like, yeah, like look what it took from their pitching staff to beat us that day. They used everybody. Luke Weaver
Right.
threw like more than three, like they used everybody. And they still got to play the next day. Why do that to ourselves when we're up 3-0?
Right.
Like it didn't make any sense, right? But that does not stop the thoughts from creeping in our minds. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So I remember the thought that I had was there's an anecdote that after one of the series, Max Muncy was telling when they're all celebrating about Brent Honeywell,
Brent Honeywell. Yeah.
right? In the division series. How Brent Honeywell wasn't even on the roster in the division series, right? I think he made it once. I think it was when Vesia got hurt or
At
something.
the
I forget
end
who
or
it was.
something. Yeah.
So he was doing live BP essentially, right? Like guys facing live hitting, and that was kind of his role. When the team didn't have it going, it was his turn to pitch that day to the guys, and he told them, "I'm going to give you fastballs right down the middle. Hit them as hard as you can."
Yeah.
Which Max Muncy put so much value in that because to him, like that kind of got the bats going, right? My fear was that holy shit, Brent Honeywell's doing that to the fucking Yankees too. I was like, no way, dude.
Okay. Getting their bats going. I see that.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
getting their
Yeah.
bats going. I'm like, oh my God, like that's gonna be the story. That's good. Oh, whatever. Those thoughts creep into your head,
Yeah. Wait, he
Um,
threw like 50 pitches that inning or
so
something.
many. Like it was just he went out there to die for the squad, like which is so valuable. So valuable. Um, and so, but at the end of the day, I was like, all right. Once I saw the box score and I saw those 4 pitchers, I said, mission accomplished.
Right.
Mission accomplished. Um, and then here comes game 5, where you have Jack Flaherty, opportunity of a lifetime, right, to close out a World Series for his hometown team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, against the Yankees. Regular rest. You got your entire bullpen behind you, like fresh, right? Comes out, frankly, looking horrible. Like
Yeah.
he just did not look good. I guess the excuse in the championship series and then LCS was that he was like sick in his start in New York, and he looked like that. He looked a little bit sick. Well, he looked like that again in Game Five and
The
against the Yankees. And I'm like, there's no way he's sick again. It's just sometimes
moment.
whatever it was, like it was just a lot. And then he looked really bad to where David Roberts had to pull him, right? And he gave up a monster shot to Aaron Judge, and that's where the thoughts creeped in again. I was like, "Yep, Brent Honeywell got them going." Uh, but he pulls Jack Flaherty. I think it was 4-0, right?
Yep.
4 outs into the game, I want to say.
Yeah. And ending in a 31.
Uh-huh. And here comes your bullpen to get you, what is it, 23 outs, and all your long guys are gone. You burned them yesterday, right? Um, so to give you a little bit more backstory to my situation that day, obviously I live out here now. My wife actually that week was working in LA, right? So she works mostly remote, but sometimes they make her go in person. So she'll stay with the parents out there. She'll stay for the week. So it was just me out here, right, suffering through these freaking games by myself. Um, so I had like contingency plans because I'm like, I'm not gonna watch the Dodgers win the World Series by myself. That's crazy, right? So I had like, okay, like if they have a lead, like I'll just start booking it to LA and like so the way that game 4 went, it really wasn't like an issue, I was like, okay, cool, like I'll say. But game 5, I felt really good about it because I was like, Jack Flaherty's on the mound. We have our whole bullpen. Like, we think we're gonna win today. So I kind of had it all planned out. So I got off work 4:30, a little early, and just drove straight to LA, like straight to the city of Whittier, and that's where my family's there, my cousins, everybody's watching at the same house, like it's a bunch of people. So through this entire game, Frank, I'm driving, like almost the entire game, like I'm on my way to LA driving from the desert. Um,
So you're on the radio call?
so I partially like there was parts when it was spotty, like you go
Uh,
through with 60 or whatever.
yeah.
Um, but I have Spectrum luckily, so I have the app and I'll
Okay.
watch it. Um, so there I am, uh and the Dodgers go down 5-0, man. And I'm driving to LA and they're down 5-0. I'm not gonna lie to you. I turned around. I turned around. I was probably like around like Morongo.
Oh, wow. That far still.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, dude, this is so far. Like now's the time if I'm going to. But I turned around. I was a little past Morongo because when I got back to
Yeah.
Arizona.
Because you have to work the next day?
Yeah, I had
Okay.
I closed the next day, so I was able to still get some sleep. But so um, and when I turn around, Aaron Judge makes the error,
Okay.
the first error, right? That's like when I was back around Morongo, and I said, you know what, dude, turn it back around, and I just started going back,
Beautiful.
and that's when the snowball started going, man, and so that was just a mess, I was like, I just lost time. Like I'm gonna go, like I'm not gonna. I don't know. Am I gonna make it before the last? Um, and thankfully I did. Thankfully I got to my cousin's house and surprised all my cousins because obviously they're all asking or that my brother's there, and I made an entrance. Let's go Dodgers!
Nah.
It was a cool moment. But yeah, man, a lot of that I was experiencing on the road, like, and um. So I think we all had the probably the same mentality that the guys in the dugout probably had, no? Um, where like just score one, get a guy on base, put the pressure on something, and then this team can kind of blow it open, right? And that's why when Aaron Judge made that error, I was like, okay, this is the thing. That's why I turned back around. Um, and it came out later, like I guess Clinton Kershaw was walking around the dugout saying, like, just get one, just get one, just get
Yeah.
one. And there's a lot that's been said about that implosion, man. But what do you make of it?
Gosh, well, the was it Joel Sherman or whoever reported the scouting report that the Dodgers had about just make the Yankees play baseball and
Yeah.
they'll what is it? They'll inflict self-harm or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but um, so I didn't even have the context. I didn't realize the Yankees were a poor defensive team and all of that kind of stuff or whatever. Um, but so we were at family vacation. We had planned this family vacation. Our anniversary is in October. It's in early October, but it got pushed back this year. So we just went down to San Diego and we were at the Legoland Hotel. First time the kids ever stayed there. So we went, my oldest son still loves building Legos. So it was like enjoyable for him, but also my younger two boys, or at least the toddler, he likes Legos. So, the girls too. So it's just a family thing. And so we planned our trip and the itinerary was it game five, we were at the zoo that day, San Diego Zoo. So you try to make the zoo worth it. So you stay pretty long. So we're driving back from the zoo to Carlsbad. So that's a little drive.
Mm.
And there's a bunch of traffic. Like it is, I don't know why, but there was just a lot of traffic. So we still got to get our food to take to the room. So when the game starts while we're in traffic. So I'm already behind. I'm like, man, we wanted to be back at the hotel by this point. And we were at the food place waiting for our order once the Yankees go up 4-0 and they pull Flaherty. And I'm like, ugh. So I'm like, you know what? I turned the radio call off while I'm waiting for the food order, get the food order. My son's in the back seat, like he's like, I'm gonna put it on my headphones then. I can't, I gotta listen. So we get back to the room when that fifth inning started, that the
Beautiful.
top of the fifth. So in our room, we watched the entire fifth inning.
Hmm.
And we got kicked out of the by my wife. My wife and they're like, yeah, get out, because I'm like banging on the walls. When Teoscar got his hit, I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, man, we're gonna get in trouble. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the lobby. So we watched the rest of the game from like their little lobby.
Yeah.
But watching that, I was under the thought that look, the Yankees have to win this game. They got Garrett Cole. We already got
Yeah,
the
we got
first
that. We
Cole
got our
game.
cold W. We escaped that one. Yeah.
They're gonna win this game. They're gonna pull it out. Not from the doomer perspective, like, oh, here we go, the Dodgers again. More so like the Yankees have to do this, like
Yeah. Yeah.
just to make it a competitive series.
Mhm.
So again, it wasn't impacting my thought for game six, but it was just like they're gonna pull this game out. You know what I mean? Um, so when Freddie went down 1-2, we got that one run, right? Whatever, off the Mookie Betts
That's
beating
good.
out
Yeah,
the
that's a good big.
I'm thinking, okay, they're probably going to get Freddie here. Freddie's not going to come through at this moment. It's all
Yeah, he's
good.
already
It's
done
fine.
enough.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
done enough. Like, no hard feelings. So
Yeah.
for Freddie to break through, for him to get that hit, 1-2 count, go up the middle with it, not try to hit a bomb, not try to be a hero or anything, just keep the line moving. Okay, wait, we might pull this game out.
Yeah. Now you're within two.
Yeah, like this, and let's see.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, it was like it was that thinking. It was like we might pull this out. And so for Teoscar to do what he did with the pitch that he got was impressive. I
Tough
think looking
slider.
back, Aaron Judge might have been either playing out of position or playing where they wanted him to be. He tracks down Freddie's fly ball, and that's pretty much the same exact spot.
Yeah.
Just like I want to see where
Yeah.
Freddie's home
Yeah.
run
Freddie's was
landed.
more up against the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, okay, just probably make that play. Well, the callback I thought of right away was Judge hits the homer in the first inning. He tracks down Freddie's ball, crashes against the wall. Pretty good play in the outfield. Joe Davis says, Aaron Judge putting his stamp all over this game. That was his call when Judge made the defensive play after hitting the homer earlier in the game. So when Judge drops the ball and it's leading to this inning, and now Teoscar's ball clears clears Judge, goes over his head. Now we tie the game. I'm thinking like, you're always thinking in terms of the narrative, what's going on, what's not
Of
happening. And
course.
I'm
Of
like,
course.
wow, dang, poor Aaron Judge. On top of that,
Yeah.
Freddie scores the tying run after having the base hit. So now I'm just thinking like, oh no, I think the stars are aligning. We're gonna win it today. Like I don't know how it's gonna happen exactly because we just tied it. I don't know if we're gonna take the lead the rest of this inning or what, but I think we're gonna win it today. Like I don't know. It's just the feeling is there.
Yeah, and that comes from experience and watching games, the flow and this and that, and us obviously just thinking we know everything probably.
Yeah,
Because I got the same feeling, man. Like even because okay, so that happens, and I mean to the Teoscar ball. I think what was happening is I think they were pitching him a certain way and
sure.
positioning them to the way that they were pitching. They did not expect him to pull that ball to any degree because he was shaded away to the right. So for him to get that much of a charge into that pitch is just, I mean, just speaks to the strength that he has. Um, but yeah, man, that inning was wild. I mean, I that was one of the ones where we can't truly say we've been on the other side of. I don't think like we've been through distinct meltdowns. Um, but can you think of like that bad of defense leading to
Yes.
I can't
Specifically
really.
defense. No, I mean there was that Kershaw implosion against the Cardinals like in 2014.
Mhm.
Was it like it was a game? I forgot which game it was, or he's like 8 runs or something. And I know there was some defensive stuff there, but it wasn't in one single inning.
Yeah.
And part of that was just on Kershaw. But
I think here's the one. Here's the 2020 World Series against the Rays. There was just a stupid defense that played to end
game
the game.
was it game four?
I think it was game
Game
four,
four.
yeah. Um
Yeah, but that was just one single play, but it was pretty bad. It was like
yeah, that was pretty bad
overthrow
now that I
and
think about it. That was oh, it was horrible.
Rosarino falls down rounding
Oh, it
third.
was so dumb. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm glad we can laugh about it now. But yeah, as that's happening, like, and again, we don't have the backstory of how bad the Yankees defense is. I mean, to a degree, we know who their guys are and whatever. But I mean, to the back of my head too, like I've always known Anthony Rizzo to be like an elite first baseman. You know what I mean? So you don't think those types of things happen, but the way what it all comes down to, man, is like running hard out of the box.
Everything and rounding the bases, running hard
Like
on the bases.
that, and like just it's true, just playing baseball. Like the playing baseball the way you're supposed to play it and um putting the ball in play, right? Strikeouts don't do anything for anyone. Like putting the ball in play and I think it was I want to say it was John Smoltz that had the call where he said like yes the Yankees opened that door for them
No,
but
that
not
was
any.
Davis. That was
So
Joe
there you
Davis.
go, yeah, not any team just walks through it like the way the Dodgers did. uh so it speaks to kind of everything, right? It's one of the most insane things. And remember at the time I was driving through God knows where, and I was like, what is happening? Like, I think I was driving through the hills, like when you're driving on the 60, like in Beaumont. Um, and so yeah, I mean, look, a lot's being said about that inning, and it was an implosion. Like if it was the Dodgers, we would say the Dodgers choked that game. I mean, that's just
Absolutely right.
and that is kind of what happened, right? Um, but there's a lot of things the Dodgers had to do right, you know, and running the bases is one of those things, putting the ball in play is another one of those things. Mookie Betts had almost an identical hit to first base, I want to say in the first inning,
First inning, yeah.
right? Um, and and here's where the difference is. Rizzo tossed it to Garrett Cole in the first inning.
No, Rizzo took it himself.
Rizzo took it himself
Yeah.
in the first inning. You're right. You're right. So that's why Garrett Cole didn't get over. He took it for granted.
Yeah.
Took it for granted. He didn't run over there because in the first inning was the same. But guess what? This one probably had a little bit more spin on it. Took Rizzo an eighth of a step the other direction, stopped his momentum, was going to count on him flipping the ball. Like this is the game of inches, centimeters. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what makes me love
Man.
baseball so much, right? And hate it sometimes when you're on the other side of it. But um, this happened to the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, and so you remember that palpable feeling that
Mm.
we're talking about it when things are not going well at Dodger Stadium and you just feel it, the energy in the stadium. The moment Aaron Judge dropped that foul ball or that fly ball, sorry, you could feel that palpable energy from Yankee Stadium. It's like they were waiting for it too. Um, And the Dodgers did that to them, man. Like that's the reality. So look, at the end of the day, and everybody's saying it too, the better team obviously won, but that game was just a complete mess from the Yankees. But let's not forget that they got the lead again.
Right.
They get the lead again. I think was it Brusdar came out and just wasn't sharp.
Yeah, Stanton hits a deep fly ball, sac fly.
Yeah, a sac fly puts them ahead. Um, but at that point, I think it was just the Dodgers were not going to be denied. I
That
think.
and the Yankees burned their high leverage guys. This was the third game in a row for all of them, every single one
Mhm.
of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they were going to make something happen. And it's just kudos to the team not getting out of their at bats, you know what I mean? Grinding at bats, kind of just trusting that process all the way through.
Mhm. Yeah, man, and we've never seen that from our team, man.
Right.
It all came to fruition, and look, I mean, the masterclass of Dave Roberts in that game of knowing exactly when to take guys out and worrying about later, right? So there's certain games that were punted, or yes, yes. I mean, call it what you want. Um, but this game, I think he talked about it with Mookie, saying like, hey, once the team came back to tie it, he knew he had to be all in with every decision he made to win that game too, right? Because he would be doing his team a disservice if he didn't, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So worry about later, right? Bring in Blake Trinan in the sixth inning to clean somebody else's mess up and see what the frick happens later, right?
Right.
And um, then later we find out that Walker Bueller had sent Dave Roberts text messages saying that he'd be ready, right? He kind of just said like, yeah, kind of like when your son told you about Freddie Freeman and cricket. But
I'm ready.
yeah, all right, good, all right, good talk, buddy. Um, but uh, he needed him, right? And in a way that you would probably script or couldn't even script, like I remember by this time I was already at my cousin's house when Bueller was already kind of getting hot, when he was getting hot in the bullpen. And I was like, oh my God, Walker Bueller is going to pitch this ninth inning. Oh my, like, this is what's happening right now. Like what is this real? Like, how does this happen? And so obviously, but here's the thing, you have the worry too. Like, it's like, dude, he just pitched 2 days ago. Like, you don't know. And shame on us, shame on me for not knowing, right? Like, but um the way the Dodgers clawed back too was such beautiful baseball. Like the at bats they took to get runners on base, to get the sacrifice flies when they needed them. Right? You talk about Mookie when he did his fist pump, because he knew that's the at bat he need. That's the result he needed. Right? Mookie was looking for one pitch there, and it was something up. And again, credit to everybody for wearing their pitching down to the point where Luke Weaver knew he couldn't throw that fastball up. He needed something on the ground. But he was gassed, man. He had
Right.
pitched every freaking game in the series. Like he was gassed and he left that pitch up. The first pitch of the at bat left it up. And got a sacrifice fly to bring the winning run in. And um yeah, I think this team is performed better than any Dodger team I've ever seen in my life. Right. Uh,
Executed. Yeah.
it's just really what it came down to. And I love what Dave Roberts said about the team taking on his personality probably for the first time ever. And it's true, man. I think that is what happened, right? Being optimistic when you probably shouldn't be. Like you're down 5-0 in a game against the Yankees. Their offense is starting to get going. You have a Garrett Cole on the mound. It takes some like Dave Roberts like silly optimism to believe
Yeah.
you're gonna come out on top there, or to see it happen, right? To
Yeah.
visualize.
To envision it and then, preach it.
Yeah, and
Conviction. Yeah, it was shades. The way that game ended ultimately was shades of that 2016 NLDS game against
it
the
had to be
Nats.
good.
Because remember, Kenley went like 40 something pitches. I think he went the exact same as trying like two and a third
Hmm.
before Kershaw came in to close that game out. I think the only difference was Blake trying to got through the completed his inning, the eighth inning,
Hmm.
whereas Kershaw relieved Kenley.
Yeah.
Um, but this is just in like that's one thing to do in NLDS. Game five, of course, a lot of pressure,
Yeah,
but
yeah. At the time, I mean, that was the biggest thing of we've done.
yeah, right, right. And it was cool because Kershaw and Kenley, they were a battery in the minor leagues or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this wasn't that same thing. This wasn't the 2019 bringing in Kershaw, leaving him in a place Juan Soto after he gives up a bomb already.
Yeah.
This was different because it was like complete necessity to bring in Walker Buehler. That wasn't like,
No.
oh, let me give it to my guy and hope he performs or something. Like there was like no other option. We're gonna live or
Yeah.
die with Buehler in that ninth inning.
And apparently Hudson was about to blow out his elbow, which
Yeah,
Doc didn't even know, and um just I mean, look, the willingness, like I didn't even tell Walker to walk to the bullpen. He just said, I'll be hot when you need me. Like he just did it. Like the
shades of the
situational
Oral
work.
Hershiser thing.
And how perfect is it, man, that just like in 1988, all the parallels that all the comparisons between Bueller and or how close of a relationship that him and Hershiser have there on the mound to close out the World Series, like and um God, that moment was such a beautiful moment. I so grateful to be been able to experience something like that, and for all the silliness of it, man. And it's funny. So I manage a restaurant and I have a group of managers that I manage, right? Um, so I kind of let them know before October, like, hey, this is kind of like my time of the year. Like like you're gonna notice the schedule being written a certain way. Like, you work hard to get to where you get so you could do those are the little perks, right? Like that's kind
Yeah,
of um move some things around. They were gracious enough to do. I mean, they were totally. I mean, my team is great. And they're like, yeah, yeah, we'll switch some things. All right, go ahead, go watch the game. Whatever, do what you got to do. I was like, all right, cool. And so after the fact, when they all won and the whole thing, I made sure to kind of circle back with them. I was like, hey, like I know it might feel like look silly. I know it's like to a lot of people it's just a game and this and that, and it's the Dodgers. Like everybody likes the Dodgers. I was like, but like this is especially important to me, you know, for whatever reason. Yeah, it's a little silly sometimes, right? To take a game so seriously and for it to mean so much. Um, we didn't know when we're gonna get our moment, man. We didn't know like how many times like do yourself a favor and or don't do yourself a favor and look at the 2021 Dodgers roster and think to yourself, how the hell did they not win the World Series?
yeah,
Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Corey Seager, like what? Justin Turner was on that team. Like insane. Um, you don't know. Like just because you get these players, you don't know what's gonna happen for you because so
right.
many
That's the
things
thing.
can go wrong. So many things. We've seen it, man. And so people like us, right? People that experience these things and we immerse ourselves into these experiences every single season. Um, I know this is special to everybody, right? The Dodgers mean so much to the city and to the fan base and to everything, and I understand that. Um, so when I see people get really, really excited, I believe that they are excited. Like I truly do, right? Um, but there's a few of us, right? Much less of us that when things don't go well, it affects us in a different way, right? I think we're both on that list, and there's trust me, still a good amount of people, right? But anybody that's taking the time to listen to this, like you're on that list, like um, so like it feels amazing, man. It every interview that I'm watching about with our guys on whether it's Jimmy Kimmel or Rich Eisen or these John Boy shows or whatever, like I'm watching them all. I'm reliving it over and over and over again, and it's just so special, man. And the people you get to live those moments with too. So like your son,
Yeah,
I imagine that's beautiful, man. And your son already got to do that twice.
yeah,
He's gonna remember that. And um, I saw Theo Steve at the parade.
yeah. I saw that. That was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I saw his boys, and I told them I was like, man, like they're teenagers, you know. I was like, I had to wait like for this moment to be at a parade. I had to wait 31 years, you know, and I'm not that old. There's people like, you know, there's people that had to wait longer, but so just take it all in, you know, like you just don't know, you just don't know, because we all thought we'd get a parade the first time they won the World Series, and we didn't, you know, like you
Right.
just don't know what life's gonna throw at you, man.
Right.
Um, so yeah, man. I mean, any other notes you have or experienced, you know, in that series?
Yeah, no, just enjoyed the ride, obviously, and it's just the various memorable moments, the very legendary moment, obviously with Freddie, and then um Bueller, our guy, being the guy to close it out and everything like that. Just all of it, man. The parade, the celebration was pretty epic at the stadium. I wasn't there, but just watching that and all of it, the entire ride was just something that we'll never forget, obviously. And there's like special moments that we'll never forget. I mean, the stories will tell forever. You driving back, turning around, turning back around. It's like that's
Yeah,
epic. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the lady at the Legoland Hotel was like yelling at us. She was doing a little like nighttime performance that they always do in their little castle area or whatever. And
Please, lady.
and we're like when I forgot what moment. I think that when Camley walked or Cannell when he walked the bases loaded or whatever. When he walked, yeah, when the base got loaded, we're like, oh, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. We're like screaming, and when the first sack fly to tie it, we got Lux. We're like,
Uh,
yeah, we're gonna win, we're gonna win. The lady's like, oh, excuse me, can you guys keep it down? I'm like, no.
no, not a chance. Not a chance.
uh, so yeah, just the memorable ride that it was. Hopefully, we'll have more. But I think no matter what happens, I really feel that we could repeat next year, which would be epic. First team to do that in however long. Since the Yankees, this one is just
You
gonna
can't
just
imagine it surpassing it. Like
no,
you can't.
right.
And yeah, man. So congrats to you, congrats to your son, your
Yeah,
family, and
congrats,
to
man.
anybody that's still listening to this. Congrats to you guys, man, because we get it. We get what it feels like when things don't go well, when things are supposed to go a certain way and they don't, right? When the unimaginable happens against you, like we know what that feels like, right? When you get cheated out of something, like that's distinct to us, you know. That's distinct to our fan base and the ones that really follow along. And um, you know, I'm sure there's comparisons throughout history, but we're the ones that are in it right now. And man, what a time to be a Dodger fan. What a time. And I know we've probably said that a million times, but like, oh my goodness, this series transcended so much, right? Because it was Dodger Yankees, because of the moments, the Freddie Freemans, the Yankees meltdown in game 5, like just so many different things. Like it transcended what a lot of World Series usually amount to, you know, and I'll go out on a limb and say that baseball really, really needed it because of the product of the last one. It's like, I'm sorry, like congrats to
Yeah,
Rangers, but that's just not it. That's not
right.
it's not that's not what everybody shows up to spring training for, you know, like um
Yeah, and especially now with all the parity, you know what I mean? It feels like it's gonna be few and far between when you get the matchups like this.
yeah,
Top
for
seeds in
sure.
each league.
Yep. And the season before that, the bummer of everybody having to stomach the Astros winning it again. And you know, it's just everybody I think I don't know. The series is going to feed families for a long time.
Yeah,
So yeah, man. I mean, congrats. And another thing I wanted to congratulate you for, man, is that Coach of the Year award that you won, man. That's freaking cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I'm a little curious.
yeah, no, pretty epic. So, the agency I partner with or I work with is Up to Us Sports. They're the contract coaching agency for the Los Angeles Dodgers Foundation.
Mm,
So for all like my rec ball stuff, I just coach in the Dodgers Dream Team program.
mm,
And I've been doing that for like, I don't know, several years, like 8 years or something now. And every year at the end of the year, they send out a survey or a coach of the year nomination to all their partner parks, all their locations. And essentially, parents, coaches, and park staff can vote and nominate, rather, nominate somebody that they feel is worthy of that aspect. Um, and so, yeah, enough parents. I don't know how many, but I asked the guy a little bit, the brain trust that's in charge of ultimately selecting. So the process is the nominations go in, and then the LADF staff, there's a couple of people that will sort through those nominations. I think they narrow it down to something like 10, if I believe. And then they give that list to Dave Roberts. And I say, okay, these are the top 10 that we've narrowed it down to. Now you got to pick five. And this is like 500 coaches. So um, I was one of the five,
So Dave
pretty cool.
Roberts chooses the five.
Yes.
Bro,
So
I did not know that.
yeah, he takes the list and he looks at it, and based off of everything that the
The
parents, the
information they give
coaches,
him.
the information given, he decides on those five. So, and then they
Oh,
just
yeah,
get
that's
back
cool.
to you. So when I got that email and it's like, congratulations, coach of the year, I'm like, oh, this is some kind of spam or something. And no, so then I went through all the itinerary, set it up, and yeah, that was just a cool moment. Cool. So they honor you on the field in the pregame ceremony. You get your trophy. It's a pretty cool trophy too, man. And then Dave Roberts comes out, and what's funny was, so they run us through everything. We have a ceremony up top like before everything
Uh-huh.
with all the staff, and then we do the pregame thing. So we're doing the pregame thing, and they tell us like, okay, we're going after this. Who's the actor? Almost.
Edward James almost?
Edward James Olmos. Yeah, yeah. So he threw out the ceremony and first pitch for that game
Okay.
just randomly.
Uh-huh.
So we got to chat it up with him, talk to him, take a picture
All
with him,
right.
and stuff like that.
Jaime Escalante.
Yes,
Stand
exactly.
and deliver.
Stand and deliver. So like right after he throws the first pitch, you guys are gonna be up next. We're gonna call you out. Everyone's like running the stage manager and all that. And they're like, okay. And then when you guys are there, Dave Roberts is gonna come out and we're gonna do the picture. You'll be on the video board, whatever. And Roberts isn't like anywhere to be found. They're like,
Forgot.
I hear the lady like she's like, "Where's Dave? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?" And the PA announcer, he goes, congratulations, joined by manager Dave Roberts on the field. And everyone's just, and we're on the board now, so
Uh-huh.
we're just like, okay, just play it cool. Like, what's going on here?
That's hilarious.
So I was on the like give Dave Roberts his flowers train. I was get going there.
Uh-huh.
But in that moment, I'm like, of course he's laying on this decision. Whatever. It's like a moment.
You saw
And
your
then
tweets from a couple of years ago. Too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I deleted them before. Trust me.
Oh,
I
okay, good,
cleaned I
good.
cleaned up my mess.
You scrubbed your Twitter.
So so sure enough, he comes out, and I made sure that I positioned myself right next to him for the photo. I wanted that. I wanted that. Um, so it was cool. Got that photo and stuff like that, and no one could take that away from me. It was really cool. On Real Talk, just to be appreciated, recognized for amongst the fact that it's parents, it's staff, and whatnot. It tells you that, because man, coaching youth it's a grind. It's sometimes a thankless thing. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's, especially on the rec ball side, it's just like parents dropping off their kids and leaving and running errands, and you kind of got to deal with. And this is in the inner city, so you're dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we do it for a reason. A lot of us like to say that if you do it, it's because you feel called to do it. It's not something you do for just because. And so, yeah, it was a cool moment that I'll always appreciate.
Yeah, man, and well, heck of a year for it to happen, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with sometimes, I mean, that type of service that you're doing, it could feel a little thankless at times. So, I mean, obviously, it resonated with everybody that comes into contact with you, and it's well deserved, man. I mean, even the ball player and man that your son is becoming, and I mean, it's evident, so. And it's cool to have fruits to those labors and yeah, man, it's It's cool, man. It's a nice little cherry on top of a of this type of year, um and yeah, bro. I mean, congratulations again.
Nah, thank you, man. Thanks for shouting that out.
Yeah, of course, brother. Um, I mean, look, I mean, I had so much fun kind of going through the entire postseason right here and um, kind of reliving some of it, remembering some of the moments and some of the things you maybe don't think about when you get to thinking about this stuff, and um, so anybody that's listened this far, thanks for sticking with us, and and for those of you that have listened to us in the past, thanks for sticking around. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that the Los Angeles Dodgers won the 2024 World Series in about as grand a fashion as you could. And there's not much more that you can ask for as a fan. Um, and we're getting to experience this. So experience these. I mean, hold on to these moments. Um, watch all the interviews and and indulge a little bit. I think it's okay because, um, like we said, it's a little silly at times, and it's probably the one part of our lives we have no control over or that we go a little bit crazy about. Um, so when things kind of play out, I think we should take every W that we can, man. Uh, so I appreciate your time, Frank. It's good
Yeah,
talking with you,
likewise.
and we'll do it again soon, but hopefully we don't wait as long. But yeah, man, we'll get back to it. So. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been the Let's Be Frank podcast. I am Frank Lopez alongside my co host, Frank Martinez, and we hope to talk to you guys again soon. Peace.